Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Well, good evening and welcome members, officers, and those members of the public that are here at the meeting and those joining us virtually. Item 1, apologies for absence. Kirsty?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies received from councillors Christie, Peppel, Hicks, Locke and Thomas.
Could I just make, you can see we've got a new layout in the room this evening. It's a bit of a trial. We don't quite know how it's going to work out. But could I ask those of you that are speaking to speak clearly and perhaps a little bit louder than would normally?
Does that apply to me, Chair?
An exception. Item 2, the council minutes of 30th of October.
There's nothing coming out of the speaker.
Is that any better? No.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
I can't hear it myself.
If we should have gone to 10.
It is working?
I don't know.
When they come in and speak.
I can't hear it. Is that any better? No? I can't hear it myself. I think it is working. I'll take my own advice and speak louder now. Okay, this is the minutes of the 30th of October. I'll run through them page one starting on page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Someone like to move those minutes? I'll move those, Chair. Thanks, yeah, I was moving. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, so Councillor Harding, seconded, Councillor Levis moved the minutes. You got that all right? Right, can I have a show of hands, all in favour, please? Against? And abstentions? That's all.
Yes, 26 for and 4 abstentions, Chair.
Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is the action list, which is pages 14 and 15, your agenda. So you see there the letter that the parish goes through to request to identify suitable land. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, regarding the second item, Southwest Water. I'm sure Councillor Christie was here. He would have asked about the progress on this particular matter. Can you tell us, please?
Well, further down the agenda, I believe Southwest Water are going to come to the full council and give a presentation. And hopefully at that meeting, we'll be able to give them the grilling that they probably deserve.
Joe?
Yeah, Chair, to confirm they'll be coming in January.
Thank you, Tom. Item 4, public contributions. We've got one public speaker, Mr. Robert Durant. Can I ask you, Mr. Durant, to come up to the microphone here? Thank you. And you have your 3 minutes when you start speaking.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, not long ago, you voted to prohibit fireworks displays, Council-owned land close to Bideford Bridge, to avoid distress and harm to the starling roost there, birds which are endangered, protected, and in steep decline. It is sad and disturbing, therefore, that this year a high-profile local businessman should have made a determined effort to take advantage of the changed ownership of Brunswick Wharf to reinstate just such displays as you condemn. Fortunately, once the new site owner became aware of the background, he very responsibly withdrew his support and his consent to such use of his car. However, whilst the thwarted instigator now intends to relocate his fireworks to Westwood Ho for this year, he seems determined to overthrow the effectiveness of the measures to protect the starlings, and has already alluded to his intention to try again in 2024 with something very similar. In this unhappy context, I urge you strongly to support Councillor Hames's motion, and also to make a public declaration of your vehement disapproval of those and all such activities that are likely to cause environmental harm. We've lost so much. As I was growing up in Bideford, we often watched salmon being netted up just upstream of the bridge. I spent countless enthralling hours at the pond next to the BJ's, now a grim, polluted place in permanent shade, but then full of wildlife. Fishes, frogs, newts, dragonflies dancing in the sunlight, even swimming grass snakes. The streams were abundant in sticklebacks. I caught lizards and slow worms all along the banks of Scratchy-Faced Lane near Badger's Hill, beneath hedges busy with such birds as yellowhammers. At night, huge moths and beetles banged around our ceiling lights and splattered on the windscreen on night drives, and barn owls often floated through the headlight booms. Hedgehogs snuffled on our lawns at Pines Lane every summer night. The current High View play area was then a field of wild grasses and abundant flowers, alive with bees, butterflies and grasshoppers. Red squirrels skittered through the woods where Morton Park Estate now is. The fields around this building were bright with poppies. Our environment is tragically and hideously impoverished. Norwich has recently begun on some small steps to counter the trend, and I urge you to throw all your weight to find whatever more can yet be done and to strive to reverse such losses. Meanwhile, please lay down one small marker of intent by supporting Councillor Hames's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go for 3 minutes. Okay, moving on to item 5, declarations of interest. Well, you all know the score there. If you have any interest, please declare them at the appropriate time. Item 6, agreement between agenda items part 1 and 2, Arnold part 2 this evening. Item 7, consider correspondence or any other business, especially brought forward by the chair. I have nothing in particular. So moving on then to item 8 is to receive a verbal update from Barbara Shaw, Chief Executive of Westwood Housing. I believe we've been allocated 10 minutes. You don't have to use 10 minutes if you don't want to. You can go up to 10.
So, well, thank you very much for inviting me. I am here with a colleague, Rachel Stirl, who is our Executive Director for Property and Development. So I'm with this group. Westwood Housing, can you go back a bit? That's a bit quick. I'll let you know when I need it to. So Westwood Housing actually employs 79 people in Torrid, and that can be broken down into, we have 13 housing and administrative roles, 8 support services roles, and 39 people who work in our direct labour force. And that all adds to the economic viability and growth of Torrid. Many of us now work at home, and that's through the technology that we use that is able to connect us as an organisation. Just move the slide on, please. So in Torrid, we actually have just under 2,000 homes, and we actually have around 7,500 homes across our area of population. The majority of these homes are general needs, just around 1,500. We've got some affordable rents under 100, housing for older people, just over 200 homes, and we've got 74 shared ownership homes. And those are homes that people have bought or partly bought, they own part of them or extending, we own the rest. We'd like to move on to slide 4. So In delivering our services, we think it's really important that we hear our customers, we listen to them, we co-create with them, and we improve our services through working with our customers. It's also become part of key regulation now in terms of housing. And that's because you will all know about the terrible tragedy that happened in London in 2017 with Grenfell Tower. More recently, I think over the last 18 months, you will have seen concerns on TV around Fountain Road. So involving our customers is really important. We have a number of ways that customers can get involved. The highest level of involvement for us is customer scrutiny. Most people do reviews of our services, which have included voids, repairs, damp and mould, and tenant services indicators. Our voice is where people can dip in and dip out engagement. Some of that is around surveys, and some of it is around focus groups. We have estate champions who look after estates for us and tell us when things are going wrong. And we also do estate walkabouts, where our housing officers and property people will go out, we will tell our customers when we're going, and we walk about our estate. We've just employed 3 customer liaison coordinators, and again, these people will be working on the ground with our customers to improve services. We do independent surveys every month with 200 of our customers who have received our services, see what they're actually thinking. We have a complaint service, and the things we're really looking for there is to learn from those complaints. And you will know that we have advocates like yourselves and who talk to us on behalf of their constituents. Our operational lead for customer insight and engagement is Jack here. So if we could just move on. So I thought you'd have in some stats. So our overall satisfaction in the Torridge area is just under 76%. Repairs are at 81%. Satisfaction with inquiries 80%. How easy or difficult are we to deal with? 77%. And how much do you trust Westwood? And I think this one's really important. And we've got a 70% confidence factor there. And since September, we've had 18 complaints from our customers in Torridge, and those have all been resolved at stage 1 and haven't gone to the office. I'd like to move on. So, again, you will all know about the cost of living crisis. This has been really challenging for everybody, but especially our customers. And we've done a number of things. The first one is our Westwood Assurance, and this means that nobody will lose their home as long as they speak to us. We all understand that it can be really difficult. So talk to us, tell us what your problems are, and we will ensure that you maintain your home. We created a household support fund. I have to thank Councillor James and Steve, because at first we called this the hardship fund, and they pointed out to me that that probably was a bit negative, so we changed it to household support. We employ 4 financial inclusion officers, and these people help people at the beginning of their tenancy, and we look at their finances to check that they can afford their home, but also are they claiming all the benefits that they actually can do. We do lots of awareness campaigns, which are really important, but we make sure that we don't inundate people, because again, people, if they are in debt, can feel absolutely swamped. And our customer scrutiny group have had input into all of our activities with the cost of living. We're also quite a small organisation in terms of housing. We do a lot of signposting to other organisations that can help. But again, up until September, we've had 85 customers in Torridge, and that was with a total of £5,000 worth of financial support. I was through my part of the presentation. I'm going to hand over to Rachel now.
Hello, thank you. Hopefully you can all hear me as well. Please say if you can't. So I cover the property and development aspect for Westwood, and I'm here to give you a little bit of information and background on what we're doing there. So just get to the next slide. Pick the glasses off, you can see what's on this screen and tie it in with that screen. So, our property services team, have done numerous investments and some big figures in there and a large number of repairs and home improvements, across there. So breaking that down into a little more detail for the year 22-23. Interestingly, we've done cyclical painting on 149 homes. We've done bathroom and wet room replacements at a further 49 homes. We've done external repairs and maintenance on 187 homes. We've replaced 160 heating systems and we've replaced 71 kitchens and 55 roofs. So that's a significant number there. Windows and door replacements have been a large programme for 155 homes, and that brings you to the total of 826 home improvements across our stock in the Torridge area. So could I have the next slide, please? On a health and safety perspective, it's imperative for us. So not only is it regulatory, there are other aspects to that to make sure we're running a safe organisation. So from compliance perspective, that covers gas safety checks, fire risk assessments, lift operations, etc. And to give you an idea of our performance on all of those, so I won't run through them all with you, but we are at 100% performance on all of those, with the asbestos checks being, now it's actually at 98%. So that's gone up from the 95% that was the snapshot at the moment that slide was taken. So all the other compliance matters are at 100% across our stock, which we're very pleased with. It's incredibly important to us that we monitor that, and our teams monitor their KPIs on a weekly basis to make sure that they're always meeting those target figures. So I have the next slide, please. For new development of homes, we have since 2020 delivered 54 new homes for rent and shared ownership within Torridge. What you see there is homes at Billy and Parkham. So we develop in rural as well as urban areas. So Parkham was literally 3 homes, a very small, one for rent, 2 for shared ownership. They were section 106 properties, but equally we do our own build. And if you know, in Bideford, we did Newton Road in Bideford, which was 31 flats and houses for a mixture of rent and for shared ownership. And so in total, we've got 54 homes there. We have pipeline schemes, but nothing that I've got that's in contract that I can say to you tonight. But we're always working on our pipeline as well. So could I have the next slide, please? This was a customer satisfaction award. We're very proud of this. We picked this up, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. So we benchmark our performance on new homes build with other registered providers in the Southwest Peninsula. And every year we have a customer conference, so the Southwest Residents Conference, and we compare our statistics. So when a home comes out of the defects period, 12 months after it's been built, we survey the residents and see how they found it. So we're looking for things like the quality of the build, their experience of that moving into their new home. Are there any design issues that they want to tell us about? What worked, what didn't work? And we feed that back into our process through our design appraisal panels before we do any new developments. And we're particularly proud of this one because we got the Customer Satisfaction Award for our Pridham Place development, which is literally down the road from here. It was done with NG Properties. We took section 106 properties and some additional properties from them for rent and shared ownership. The picture to the right-hand side was when those houses were newly developed and they've been moved into. And we actually had Homes England come down, and Steve, I think you were present on the day as well. And we walked around and had a look at the properties that were completed. It's been a very good, successful scheme for us, and we're really proud to have got that satisfaction award because that comes from the residents' feedback and the survey. So we're really pleased with that one. And the final slide, excuse me, there's a lovely picture there of Ethelwyn Brown Court, newly decorated. And there's our compliance manager stood with residents in the living room there, the lounge. So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Councillor Back.
Thank you, Chair. But can I just ask you about how successful are you with the older stock housing starting reducing carbon emissions energy saving, things like that?
Well, we have recently been successful in securing some Wave 2 funding. I don't know if you've come across Wave 2 funding. It's central government grant funding, which we have to match with our own financial contribution. And that's about retrofitting some of our older properties and getting those EPCs, the energy performance certificates, up to the C or better. So we have a programme of investment to achieve that. We've just developed our own in-house EPC tool, as we call it. So there are commercial varieties available. Our own IT team have developed one for us, so we can actually track as a KPI the performance of our overall stock. And we have an environmental working group internally, which puts forward our environmental strategy, so where we need to invest, etc. So we're doing quite a lot of work quietly on that.
Average you can see at the moment is at 83%. Yeah. So we would hope by 2025 that all of our properties are.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Brenda.
Yes, sir. Right to buy, the impact that's had on the housing association or Westford in particular, and what's happened to the receipts from that, and are you getting a reasonable settlement from, well, I'll use the word carefully, settlement from the central government to increase the stock of housing?
And it's very difficult for Westwood because the only, most of the like buys were up in College when we first did the stock transfer. I couldn't give you the detail, Councillor Byrne, but we can certainly find out. But actually, it's slowed down considerably. In my time, I've been at Westwood for 12 years. It isn't something that is significant on our agenda. I think all the people that put it fought in very early days.
I'd like those figures if I could, please.
Councillor Green.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask how easy you're finding it to access Homes England funding, because I was recently at a meeting with John Hart, who was talking about Devon's strategy, and he was complaining about the amount of money that Homes England had returned to the Exchequer, because many housing associations and housing authorities in Devon hadn't been able to access funding through it. And I wonder what your experience is.
I don't think it's about accessing funding, it's about everything that makes up what we need to do in terms of making a scheme viable. So I think, we, like everyone else, have suffered through cost of living. Our interest rates on all of our loans have gone up. After COVID, all of the costs on building went up, and we have other priorities. I mean, we're a small organisation, but actually the cost of our maintenance bills have gone up significantly by millions. So you're having to balance all these things. And what we have to remember, one of the things that Westwood board members would say to you is we are a landlord first, a developer second. Therefore, if that's your priority, then you will obviously, when the going gets tough, you reduce your development programme. That is being seen across the country. The consequence is that Homes England grant is not being spent as much as it should be. Those are the hard realities. I think there are other mechanics which Rachel might want to come in on, but that is the politics at the moment. There are a combination of factors that mean that actually we can't develop as much as we would like to.
I'm not sure that I have anything to add to that.
Councillor Pike, is that
Thank you, Chair. Community land trusts quite often have a good handle on what communities need from a housing perspective. Has Westwood had any involvement with community land trusts, and would you consider that?
We haven't in recent years had involvement in community land trusts, other than sort of at a tangent of supporting another local authority in going through sort of a financial approval process for them and supporting them in doing so. So we don't directly, or we haven't got any direct involvement with the CLT at present.
Councillor Haynes.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the presentation. I'm pleased that you have very good customer relations. I'm not so sure you have such good relationships with people like myself, a councillor, sort of seeking information. As my experience is, on one particular case, for example, it's a listed building in the square in Northam, the old schoolhouse, which I think is owned by Westwood Housing. I waited weeks and weeks for a response from you about the condition of it. On other queries, if I do get a response, it tends to be an encrypted email, which is very hard to actually plummet in order to find out what the response is. So I would hope that maybe you can improve that communication system. Also, if I'd like to ask as an Appledore councillor, Topfield, Tomouth and Appledore, I was assured by one of your managers a few years ago that will be developed or enhanced for biodiversity. I don't think that's happened, so I just wondered if you could answer that as well. Thank you.
Well, firstly, can I apologise if you've got them queries, I don't know who you put those, but I'm sure that you can get my email of Steve or Councillor James, and I will be more than happy to answer your question. The encryption, egress, I think that's very easy to solve. We have to put lots of things into encryption, as you call it, because of GDPR. But there are ways around that, absolutely. Appledore, I'm not quite sure about.
That one I'm afraid I'm not familiar with, but if you ask me the details, I can do some asking around and get some details.
It's called Topfield. It's a community area of land, and it's owned by Westwood Housing, and it's at the end of Tomouth. So perhaps if you can investigate that. As for the encryption, I've not met any other case with any other organisation where you have an encrypted email.
I would have to say there's no encryption because with certain information it does have to be encrypted. But it's easy to solve.
Councillor Hackett, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I've had a number of complaints come to me over the years concerning biomass boilers, and in one case, it was only resolved when BBC Spotlight got involved, and these complaints have been going on for many, many months. I'd like to ask, firstly, what is the situation with biomass boilers in your properties at the moment? And secondly, a number of the older properties had chimneys which allowed for wood burners, and the wood burners had to be taken out, and in some cases the chimneys removed. Now, if you have a problem with combustion, I'm sure that you can have the necessary alarms put in, and if it's a concern over the flues, you can have them regularly swept as part of a maintenance contract to ensure that it's compliant. Many of the people living in these properties are on low incomes, and every penny counts. And with village locations, firewood is very often freely available. So I would like your comments on that, and would it be possible to reverse this policy? Thank you.
I'll start with the biomass. Yes, biomass was an initiative, a green initiative, which we did get government money for. But I would concur it was not successful for all sorts of reasons. The pellets were a disaster. But we have replaced all of those biomasses that people wanted replaced. Some people wanted to keep them because actually, in a time of cost of living crisis, they were cheaper. It's cheaper to buy the pellets than it was to buy the boilers you're offering. We haven't had any complaints about biomass, I would say, for the last 12 months. But if you know somebody who is concerned, let me know and we will try to resolve that. But we have sorted that. The stoves and firewood are a bit more complicated.
Yeah, so it's from that perspective, I understand where you're coming from in rural communities, but with wood burning stoves and chimneys, that's the first thing on an EPC certificate that will blow us out of the water, unfortunately. So it's a really negative factor when you're having an EPC measurement done on the property. And it's the one thing that we need to avoid. I don't see that we could get to an EPCC with wood burning stoves and chimneys. Sorry, it's just one of those things we have to face.
Can I just come back on that? Because I don't believe that to be true. I think my property, which is heated by wood burners, has a C certificate because I've got solar panels on the roof.
Chair, could I just also come back on that, please? Because we just completed a house 2 years ago, and that's passed all the building regs, and we've got wood burning stone, and that's our main heating thing. and electric underfloor heating as well, but but the stove passed, that was
Can I
approved
say
by building control,
that
I don't
might-
understand this.
That might also link into the fabric first approach, so a modern building with high energy efficiency fabric. You could probably offset that. However, if we're talking about some of our older properties in rural areas, maybe that's the combination of the two is why it doesn't work.
What we can do is we'll come back to you on that. I mean, obviously, you don't feel that what we're saying is appropriate, so we will get some more advice on that and give you our position.
One last point, my cottage is over 300 years old. So I don't think it can be an age thing, but you're also taking out the chimneys so that it's not possible to retrofit in a number of cases. So really, the stable door is being bolted after the horse has left.
Well, thank you for that, but we will come back to you on that.
Councillor Newton.
Yeah, thank you. Ladies, thank you for your presentation. You inevitably, understandably perhaps, showcase the good, the modern, the new. And likewise, your statistics that you produced where you were doing well. Perhaps if you were speaking to the External Oversight and Scrutiny Committee, there could be more context for it where we could look and scrutinise more on other things which inevitably perhaps aren't going quite so well, but you chose not to mention here. I have a plea for you, and that is showcasing the modern stuff, the good stuff, is easy. I'm down in Winkley in the bottom of the patch, and I have, like most other councillors, I have a traditional old council estate. Can I ask that actually 75% of your attention and effort is actually diverted at the old stock and not the new? The new is easy, and it's easy to flatter. It's the old where we actually need the attention, because the social context of the old is quite different from what we build in the new now. And I have a former council estate, yours now, mainly yours, pepper potted with ones which are being bought. The dividing fences don't exist. It looks tacky, bad. And actually effort put on it from a context of saying, how can we really lift this? Would make a huge amount of difference. And I just get the impression that all the effort is, look what we're doing. New buildings, not that many of them actually, compared to your overall stock. New, aren't we doing well? And look at these figures. Actually, go and look at the majority of your stock in some of our patches, and the reality is not that good, better, I would suggest.
We've spent 16 million on our existing properties. And if you look at Eccleston Brown, that is not a new scheme. That is a scheme that has been retrofitted and it's had new fascias and paint lift. And I think it looks new, but actually it's not new. I take on board what you said about Winkley, and we'll have a look. I can't redirect all of our resources there though, because otherwise others would not be.
I'm not making a plea on a particular ward. There are those type of estates one sees all over. So don't think that I'm making a plea particularly for my bit, but it's just as a common thing. The older stock requires more human effort to actually overcome the fact that it's, you know.
And I think the previous point, wasn't it, about Homes England, and the reason that housing associations aren't taking up that grant anymore is because we have recognised that we need to focus on our existing stock.
Councillor Whittaker, you're going to be, you're going to be the last speaker, but before I can finish the sentence, Councillor Lavelle put her hand up. You will be the last speaker.
Right, thank you, Chairman. I feel somewhat guilty considering that you've made so much investment and in some ways moved so much further since I was last on this council. But I just want to take you back a little while to when you used to invest in the community, and you invested in something called Jigsaw, which was an amazing project and did an untold amount of good in Bideford for a lot of people who were considerably disadvantaged. And although I'm asking probably a lot under the current climate, I'm just wondering if at any time in the future, you might be able to consider doing that again. Thank you.
We'll consider it. I think it's quite hard. It may come back in a different format. That's why we're employing 3 coordinators, but it is difficult. I mean, you know, we were all very confident, but in terms of their viability, they are really not viable, and it is extremely difficult for us to justify.
Can I just ask, there's been quite a lot of talk about the old stock and new stock. What proportion of your stock falls into an older category rather than the new build type, you know, proportionately? And also the damp and mold problems, are they a feature of purely the old stock? Does the new stock not have those problems? Have they been resolved, or is it a question of ventilation and problems that arise with time data and what have you?
So we have just under 2,000 homes in College, and I think Rachel did say that we have built 54 homes up here since 2020. So, you know, the proportion of new homes is quite small. The damp and mold issue can affect both types of homes. The problem with new homes is they are so thermally efficient, they cannot breathe. So consequently, you can get damp and mold. You can get damp and mold because render hasn't dried out properly, all sorts of reasons. But I'm not saying that has been a significant problem for us, but we have seen that in other housing associations and other parts of the country. Damp and mold in our existing can be for all sorts of reasons. It can be because of the structure of the building, it's getting old, we may have water ingress. It can also be because of people's behaviours. It depends, but whatever type of damp and mold people feel that they have in their home, if they tell us about it, we will go, we will review it, and we will do something about it.
Well, thank you, ladies, for that presentation. It's very important. Thank you very much.
And we'll get back to those people who asked us the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And moving on to item 9 on your agenda is the local council tax reduction scheme, ages 16 to 19. And Gordon Bryant, our officer, will present that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the report describes the local operation authority's council tax reduction scheme. It covers those of working age. There are separate arrangements in place for pensioners, and it is also separate to those statutory deductions that are in place, such as related to single person discounts. The report recommends an uplift in the thresholds by which the reductions are applied. This will increase the support we offer to those on modest incomes, and the cost of the porridge is detailed on the following page, on page 18. So it will be £6,000 a year that it will cost us. So in summary, therefore, Chair, this will increase to the thresholds, bring them more into line with comparable local councils, which will increase the supports on offer.
No questions?
Chair, I move that recommendation.
Looking for seconder? Councillor Grady, second. All in favour, please show. Any against? And any abstentions? Unanimous. Moving on to item 10, again, council tax base 24, 25, pages 20 to 23. Gordon?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So on page 20 is the draft of the council tax base, and the addendum to today's paper has the final numbers that we're recommending to you of the council tax base for next year. Now, this is an important step in being able to set a council tax for next year, and to be able to set a revenue budget also for next year. Next year's council tax base has been arrived at after looking at new property builds and assumptions over collection rates and supports that will be on offer. The tax base is shown as boundary equivalence and after taking off a percentage for non-collection. Once agreed by the council, this information is then passed on to other preceptors who can then able to set their budgets and set their council tax on the basis of it. This is essentially a technical paper, rather than an issue of principle or policy for the council.
Thank you, Tony. Any comments, or I'm looking for a proposal? All right, move on. Accept the recommendation. Yeah, Councillor Newton seconded, all in favour, please show. Yeah, once again, thank you. Thank you, Gordon. So moving on to item 11, licensing act policy review, pages 24 to 56. We're going to receive a report from lead licensing officer, Chris Parker. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, the purpose of the report is to seek approval for the adoption of the authority's revised statement of licensing policy. It is a requirement of the Licensing Act for each licensing authority to determine such a policy. The policy must be reviewed every 5 years, and the current policy will expire in January 2024. The revised policy has been through a consultation process. It's also been approved by the licensing committee. This was done on the 18th of October 2023. And the recommendation from the licensing committee to the full council was for full adoption of the policy.
Yeah. Seems very straightforward. Councillor Bright.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to propose that we approve the statement of licensing policy. I believe this policy will be key in continuing to deliver the key licensing objectives, which is preventing crime and disorder, ensuring public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and to protect children from harm. And with the support of the emergency services, I'm confident that we will keep our communities safe.
Thank you. For a second. I'll second it. Thank you. All in favour, please show. Councillor Harding seconded it. Okay, and against? Any abstentions?
Is there any point of putting my hand up because you didn't take any notice of that?
Sorry.
I had a point of information that
I do apologise, Councillor Brenton, I didn't see your hand go up.
No, I put my hand up.
You did?
Yeah, I voted, yeah. Yes.
So Councillor Brenton was saying she wanted to speak before the vote.
No, I didn't want to speak, I just.
Sorry, get a bit confused.
information about the alcohol exclusion zone. And I was just ignored.
I wasn't ignoring you, Councillor Brenton, I just didn't see you.
Well, I have got a red coat.
Just stay chair with your hand up and I won't miss you in future. So, is that unanimous then, Tom?
No,
Councillor Brenton,
I'm depending on this result of my question.
well, take a vote on it now, so,
Well, obviously.
one abstention then. Moving on to item 12, purchase of a tractor, pages 57 to 63, and Dawn Carney is going to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. The report contribution contains a recommendation from the Community and Resources Committee to increase the cash programme by £155,000 for the purchase of a compact tractor funded by the higher level stewardship scheme, which we apply for the boroughs every year. So this is a request that's come to us from the Borough Service and the Grange Maintenance Service put together. The tractor will do our habitat management work, and we'll also do management of triple SI down at the place. So, very briefly, the recommendation is to increase the cash programme by £55,000. Thank you.
Any comments? Councillor Lavelle?
Chair, can I just ask, sorry.
Councillor Lavelle.
I just wondered what it was called by.
It would be a diesel fuel tractor. We looked at product one, battery powered one, sorry, and there wasn't one suitable and affordable. So unfortunately, we've come to this conclusion on this particular purchase.
May I ask about alternative fuels? These all being pretty bad. Hydrogenized vegetable oil nowadays. And I'd be quite interested in having that looked into for all of our diesel vehicles within the council, because our carbon footprint is absolutely appalling. And I understand that we can't afford electric vehicles or they're not available and not suitable because of our rural environment. But the hydrogenized vegetable, which is available in the southwest, and could actually possibly be used for all of our vehicles to the green things. It's not biodiesel, it's different. And I can send the council details of that. So I'd like to ask if it could be considered, please. I think it would be.
Chair, so I spoke briefly with the head of, the operations services manager before the meeting. He did mention that that was a less preferable option, but I'm certain that if you've got information that you'd like to talk to us about after the meeting, if we get approval to purchase this, we can see whether that's an option.
Okay. Councillor Pennington, I believe you had your hand up first.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask, Councillor Hicks, I believe, voted against at CNR, and yet he's now recommending that you persons, can you explain, or have I got that information wrong? It could be in that place.
Yeah, Chair, I had a chat with Councillor Hicks earlier on. He voted, we did vote for the, so
We'll never walk again.
You mentioned the funding was. Would you like to stand? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, sciatica. You mentioned funding was coming from high level stewardship. 100% funding or?
Yes, Chair, we receive about £33,000 a year through the stewardship scheme, currently carrying a balance of £70,000 on that, so the funding would be 100% from that scheme.
Thank you. Councillor Haynes?
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on Councillor Lovell, I understand that Richard Haste and Donna Sibley, Joint Climate Officer, are always very much aware of alternative fuels, and they are actually looking at the use of hydrogenated vegetable oil as a possibility.
Thank you. Good idea. Okay, it's been proposed. Can someone, sorry, I haven't been proposed. Someone like it? Councillor James? Second from the chair. All in favour, please show. Against? The abstentions?
29 for and 1 against.
Thank you. Sure. So moving into item 13, proposed withdrawal and dissolution of part of the Southwest Joint Committee, pages 64 to 68. Steve is going to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. I guess many members have been around since the part of the Southwest Joint Committee. It was back in 2015. It was brought in when the government policies around local enterprise partnerships. And it was seen as the vehicle to engage the partnership, district councils and other partners with the local enterprise partnership. Now the government policy has changed. Local enterprise partnerships will be rolled into unitary authorities, or where there's devolution deals or county deals, rolled into those arrangements from next April. So there's no longer a requirement to have a joint committee. But because the way the constitution sits, it still has to be voted from the constituent authorities to dissolve the arrangement. So Chair, that's what the recommendation on the paper is this evening.
Thanks, Steve. Councillor Brenton.
Thank you, Chair. I remember when this came in, I thought this was the next best thing to sliced bread. You know, I was going to save us all investment, blah, blah, blah. Sort of levelling up part one, I think it was. Yeah, it seems that way anyhow. Well, obviously, it's always because these authorities aren't turning up, are they? They voted with their feet. So it hasn't worked. Just a waste of money. And it's just yet another sort of gimmick, if you like, on giving the illusion that we have somehow some control or some input into central government. No, we don't. So yes, of course, we've got to dissolve it, and then all that money will be distributed. I expect we'll get a few quid out of it, but not much. I'll propose that we actually dissolve it, yes.
Oh, thank you. No other speakers. Has been proposed by Councillor Brenton. Sorry, Councillor James, you proposed it, did you? Councillor Brenton has proposed it. Can I have a second? I'll second it. Councillor James has seconded. All in favour, please show. Right. Thank you. Item 14, a draft strategic plan for 2024-29, pages 69 to 109. All you see?
Thanks again, Chair. So, following a number of workshops, we've held with councillors, starting back in August of this year. So this draft strategic plan is following the consultation process that took place over a number of weeks prior to this evening. So back in August, we had the first workshop. From that workshop, a number of themed group meetings with lead members and officers. Then we brought to your attention a draft plan to submit and put out to consultation. So the consultation's now closed. It was extended by a week to engage more widely with parish and town councils, because some of the information hadn't got through to the relevant councillors. We've had a much better response to this strategic plan than we've had previous plans. We've also had a much greater involvement and engagement with members in this plan. And if you recall, 30 out of 36 members attended that first workshop. So we've captured all the information, all the consultation comments in the report. Obviously, the first part redacts the names, as you'd expect. So we've had 93 responses in total, which I think was about 20 or 30% from last time. So a relatively good level of engagement. You'll see on page 70 the two highest performance in relation to housing and the Bideford to Barnes, reinstating the Bideford to Barnstable rail line. In terms of the housing comments, obviously the intention was they would all be encapsulated within the council's housing strategy when that's developed. So whilst there were lots of different comments around different levels of detail, the expectation is that will all be captured within that housing strategy. In terms of the reopening of the Bideford to Barnstable railway link, is that we've included that in the report, and you'll see that the intention is to engage with partners. Obviously, there's going to be a short stretch of the former rail link in the Bideford area. So we need to engage and investigate with relevant partners, North Devon Council, Devon County Council, and some of the rail bodies to see and establish whether there is any appetite to commission a study to determine whether the feasibility, the impacts, environmental impacts, economic impacts, suggest that should be taken forward to the next stage. Chair, in relation to the comments, they've all been grouped in line with the themes to try and explain to those respondents where they've been dealt, where and how they've been dealt with in the final documentation. Chair, not intending going through those because there's quite a number of pages, and I've assumed members would have gone through and read that. Chair, I think the leader just wants to say a few words.
Thank you, Chief Exec. As he said, as Steve said, that we have much more positive response all the way through this time. We used to have workshops where if we got a dozen, we thought we were doing quite well. This time we did get 30. I extended it by a week and all my parish councils saying, please respond to emails that the council send. And when we looked at the list, a lot of them didn't even open the emails that come from college. So I think we've got a major exercise to do there. But I recommend that we, I can't remember what the recommendation was, but we adopted it as the final thing. And the one thing I would say is that this will give us a little bit of a guidance when we come to looking at projects within the Levelling Up Partnership. It won't necessarily be what goes through the system, but it's what we will be looking at of what we want. There is an element we will have to manage is what we want to what actually fits the criteria. But by using the strategy, we can actually say, this is what we think will be driving Torwich forward. So as I said, I'd like to move the recommendation to adopt it. Councillor Brenton?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm intrigued that you see the fact that there were more responses as a very positive aspect, because having waded through the comments, there's many of them that are really quite negative. There's a lot of criticism for the fact that it's too vague. Words like repurposing the town centre, whatever that means. Clearly, you may have got a lot of responses, but that doesn't mean to say they were successful responses, because from these comments, people either didn't understand what you were going to do, and I wonder who does, and or that it's so vague that, again, it's like motherhood and apple pie. Nobody's going to vote against it, of course they're not, but it doesn't have any actions in it. There's lots of comments about the fact that there's nothing specific. There's no actual plan. Somebody here says this isn't a plan because there's no targeted, achievable things that we can measure. That's what a plan is. Well, when I was doing sociology. So, you know, the idea that this is a great response, you know, I'm afraid I must disagree. And I feel that, you know, when we had our strategy meeting, there was a, you know, I found then that it was too vague. And this just reiterates that. It confirms that this is so vague that nobody's going to complain about it, but they're not really convinced that we're going to do any good for our community either.
I'm sure if I respond. Yes, obviously we're not going to please everybody with the information we put out and the when we have consultations. It is meant to be vague in some shape or form because it is at the highest level. It is a strategic document. The intention, as outlined previously, is that will be broken down, and each of your service areas across the council will build and develop operational plans which provide a lot more detail, target dates for completion, different projects, different pieces of work, and then that forms the basis of the council's service plans going forward. Their progress against those are reported to your internal overview and scrutiny committee on a quarterly basis. Then that provides the challenge back to officers on what's been achieved or not. In terms of the comments of the repurposing of towns, that was addressed and has been changed in the final document. Now reads revitalising and repurposing town centres to meet their changing needs. So when that part of the consultation came back, the lead members when they met decided to make that change.
Three speakers. Councillor Whittaker was first, then Councillor Craigie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit more than mildly curious, actually. We've got 7 responses here for arts and culture. Well, I know how much interest there is in heritage in the town. So how did you embrace that? Because I am, as I said, a bit more than mildly curious. I'm not wanting to be reassured, quite honestly.
Arts and culture.
Arts and culture. There are 7 responses. And I have read lots of them.
You have to bear with you. That's
House is on fire.
Various people that mentioned various things about heritage. And I would have thought that heritage might just deserve its own standard.
The communities health and housing, Steve. Communities health and housing.
Yeah. Yes, so I think we've indicated on the document they are included in the council's culture strategy, and that's the way they'll be dealt with.
Well, that's why I saw it, but thank you very much.
I believe it's not.
The lead member.
It was just in response to that. We had our first meeting of the Northern Devon Culture Board, and that will include heritage within that Northern Devon strategy, which is included in the strategic plan.
Lovely, thank you for that.
Thank you, Sharon. Councillor Craig is with you on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Basically, I think after hearing what Westwood Housing was saying about the developing of housing, I want to know why the suggestions put forward by Bideford Town Council that an action point on page 86 and the community health and housing, that the ability to set up a way of facilitating the building of social housing is not in itself a key priority, given that we've got a housing crisis going on at the moment, and we've heard it from the horse's mouth that social landlords have to deal with their core element of their business, and that they can't put the time into getting those grants, which we know are available and have been returned to central government. Central government is obviously desperate to hand out the money. Why, as a council, can we not facilitate those housing associations access that funding as a key strategic aim, given the importance of housing to our area, the importance of housing in maintaining a strong economy in the area, and giving people hope of a future here in the area is about having housing for young people. And so again, I would like to propose that we include the suggestion from Bideford Town Council, that is the action, which on page 86, which is under the community's health and housing, to set up a system for the council to facilitate and construct shelter rented homes.
I second that addendum.
Okay, it has been, it's dealt with as part of the housing strategy, that is the intention to look at all forms of housing as part of that piece of work.
I'll get you in a second, Councillor Hames, but it's two before you. Sorry. Councillor Smith was first, yes?
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to see that the highest number of responses to this was the railway, Barnstaple to Bideford. As chair of the Tarka Valley Railway, I constantly bleat on about the fact that it should really be called Barnstaple to Great Torrington. And I think it's a very nice intermediate stop in Bideford. We've already got several hundred yards of track laid. We have a working train that we bought from Great Western. So I think we're in a position to push ourselves forward. And I constantly say, please, can we change the name from Barnstaple to Bideford to Barnstaple to Great Torrington? Thank you.
Councillor Dawn?
Oh, thank you. Steve, you said that various departments will tie the strategic plan into their service plans. How does that work with planning? Because planning is key to our economy in quite a lot of instances, and I'm not sure they would look at our strategic plan like they do their local plan or our local plan. Ultimately, it has to be everybody in this council working towards that aim, and I feel that quite often there is a blockage along the way. And I did promote the strategic plan to our parish councils online, certainly that I've been active, and they did feedback that it was a little bit, what can you feed back to, because it's all obvious you wouldn't go against. And maybe a little bit more is not
So obviously planners make decisions according to the plan, and that being the local plan rather than the council strategic plan. We're about to embark on a journey towards a new local plan, and our strategic plan is a key evidence document in the formulation of new policy against which future decisions will be made. So in the short term, it has little impact. It sets a momentum. It gives the planners a feel for what the council wants, but they make the decision against the current plan. It will be key to the future plan.
Councillor Haynes, I believe, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to support councillor Craigie, regarding this, his, proposal on social housing. I did suggest for the inclusion of this when we had a sort of workshop meeting. And I was told that the words, provide housing for local needs cover such things, including social housing, but it's so vitally important and the most obvious route for us to provide vital housing for people on low incomes. I think it needs identifying and including, and so I will support it. Sorry, Chair, also just to say, I thought that was the route we were taking in this council in terms of identifying our own land and with a particular emphasis on social housing.
Okay, as I said, the housing strategy, when we develop the terms of reference and how we set the scene for that strategy, that was intended to incorporate all types of housing. That's the plan already, Chair. It's already.
So, where do we leave this? Did you have a proposition, I believe?
Proposed that with the insertion in the communities health and housing that the Bideford suggested, which is on page 86 of the document, that the inclusion of set up a system for the council to facilitate the construction of social homes. And so I'm proposing that is added in as an action. I believe Councillor Brenton seconded it.
Hang on a second.
I think I stood and answered this issue at the first meeting where we were looking at this strategy. A housing strategy has got to consider all types of housing need. We have issues around key workers leaving accommodation. We have issues around first-time buyers wanting to get their foot on the ladder and the kind of products we could offer them. Self-build was mentioned the other day. Social housing is important. We've heard tonight from one of the registered providers. They're not the only provider. So when we put together a housing strategy, we have to take all these strands and consider them all as significant issues for the whole community. So to pick out a commitment to social housing, if I were a key worker looking for a house, I'd be asking this authority, what are you doing about me? I'm providing services to your community and I need to be housed. But I don't necessarily want to be housed in social housing. So it's a housing strategy is the key document for us, and we need to all feed into that. And I'm not disputing the fact, please don't think I'm anti-social housing.
Well, quite frankly, it was disgusting of you to suggest that core workers.
But I do take exception. I don't think it's disgusting. I think social housing is very important within our communities. So I'll rest my case. We need to get a robust housing strategy for this council. We haven't got it yet, and we all need to work together to put that together. Thank you.
Mr. Brenton.
Couple of things. I think what Councillor Craig is proposing is actually to sharpen it up, to get some focus in on what we do need in this community. And you know as well as I do, Chairman, that social housing is something that is desperately needed in this area. As for the key worker element, well, I have to say and confess that, what was it, 45 years ago, we had a key worker house in Bideford. When have we had them since then?
It was a council house.
The council house at Churchill Road.
I didn't think it was disgusting.
I was delighted to be there after the rubbish substandard flat that we lived in Barnstaple. So, you know, let's get something right here, but it is important that we prioritize and really prioritize what is required in our area. You saw the statistics earlier on in the what was the earlier one we had.
The one in New
With all the statistics about how poor we are in this area, God damn it, we know this area is poor. And yet we still gonna have to go to government and demonstrate that that is the case. They should know that already. They've got it all in their archives if they want to look at it. So that's the reason why I supported what Councillor Craigie said, and we should do it. Let's show our constituents that actually we do care about the fact that we desperately need social housing in this area, and we're not doing enough about it. Let the developers get away with blue murder at the moment.
Councillor Newton, you had one first, and then Councillor Bell.
Chair, thank you, and I apologise for talking process. But if we take one item of many priorities that we have, if we take one item and place it in our strategic plan column, that becomes direction. It falls outside of a plan. Now, each of our particular priority areas then have a much more focused, thought through, it all comes in front of us here, deliberated and approved plan for that particular area. And as chair of the Internal Oversight and Scrutiny, who are responsible for the quarterly scrutiny of the quarterly business report, so the monitoring of progress on all of this, I have to say that actually we skew the whole system. It's not saying that one thing, this is not important, but we skew the whole system. If we actually take something which should be listed as an operational level direction, and we actually elevate it right up into the strategic level, overall blue sky thinking planning level. And if we do that, then we throw the whole system, because there's many other parts of this responsibility that this council does, right away from our money, all the way through all the different areas. The local economy, we know it all here, all as you can see, it's all on the draft plan here. And if I'm just very worried that if we start putting direction too early on, then we lose the focus required on a specific plan for a specific subject. And we do have a specific plan. We've got the housing strategy that when it comes, it's going to be looked at. It's going to be looked at by my committee. It'll be looked at by CNI. It'll be looked at by this committee, this council. It will get full scrutiny. But most importantly, it will be seen as a whole, where all aspects will be brought together and looked at and drawn together as an overall plan, not picking out one priority within it, saying we're going to do this and everything else doesn't actually meet that bar. So I would make a plea that I hear exactly what people are saying, and I understand people's passion and importance, but the process of business planning, we've got to start. They do sound rather vague, these words, but they set the tempo for the officers and the council and the various committees then to build their particular plans and strategies underneath them. It does work, but I worry if we try to put too much detail up front, we then put people's arms behind their back, and we're actually putting direction where wide angle planning and thinking should be.
I just feel that we're going from deep to scrutinize it.
Councillor Val, I know you can't match.
Sorry.
Union's voice, but you could just raise it a bit.
But, you know, it goes from this committee to that committee to the other committee to sort of just reiterate what we all know. I mean, I would have thought a really driving force to address the problem of social housing is the money we're spending on temporary accommodation, because we haven't got any social housing. And if there was anything that was going to drive this council, because it doesn't seem to be just a need or an obvious need and the distress of people whose needs are not being met, is the cost to the council. You know, deal with your social housing problem and you reduce your cost of putting people into temporary unsatisfactory housing. I mean, it's a win-win. And I don't know, you know, everybody knows we need it. Everybody keeps agreeing. How many more committees has it got to go in front of before we say what we need to be doing today or tomorrow is applying for grants or whatever it is that we get the money. It's no good saying we haven't got the money to do this. Well, there's grants out there. And if money is going back to central government, instead of going into, you know, I don't know, buying 106 houses or whatever we need to do to increase the stock of social housing, we need to be doing it now, not in a plan that's a bit vague, so we'll then get the sharpened up plan that goes the next one and another 6 months down the road, and we'll have another think about it, and somebody else will say, we'll propose it and we'll second it and think. We need to do it now, because money is just leaching out of the council to support the people who need the social housing. It's, I don't know, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Councillor Brenton, throw your hand up this time.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I totally agree with Councillor Lovell about this whole situation, and I completely refute what Councillor Newton says, because we know that we need social housing. As far as I'm concerned, it should be our top priority, and that should be emphasised in this plan, because it needs to be, because it hasn't been solved up till now. It didn't just suddenly come on the horizon this year. It's an accumulating situation for many years on Torridge, and of course in many other communities. And we really should put our money where our mouth is and say that we believe that social housing is our top priority. Councillor Hodson says, oh, that would be unfair because we're pinpointing one section of the community, even though it is the most needy and probably in many ways the most deserving, because we've got all these other people and they'll be, I don't know what point she was making, but they'll apparently look askance at that. But the fact is we have some huge developments taking place in Bideford. We have the nearly 800 houses from Bloor Homes up beyond Atlantic Village. They are already taking place. People who want to move into this area and can afford to buy houses are not disadvantaged. People who want to live in this community and have been born and bred here and have benefit from our low wage, which is one of the lowest in the country, as we know from these statistics we've just seen about the levelling up, they are the ones that are disadvantaged. They can't compete and buy these expensive homes that are being built all around us. So the idea that it would be unfair in some way to pinpoint our dire local need for social housing is ridiculous. It's bizarre. It's ignoring reality. Social housing, the lack of it in our community, is a huge elephant in the room and in this room. And to ignore it is to be callous to the extreme.
Can I just bring in David before your question?
Thank you, Chair. Overall, I've got responsibility for housing within the council. I run the department. Councillor Hodson is actually my lead member for housing, and I have many a debate with Councillor Hodson. In particular, in relation to producing a housing strategy, and we do have one. It's out of date, and with what we want now. I agree, we do need social housing, but that's not the only thing that we need. Not everyone that we have in temporary accommodation wants a social rented house. A lot of them want to be able to buy a house. They want to be able to get on the property ladder. Some have had to vacate rural areas because they want to be in the village that they grew up with. So I think I've got to support what Councillor Hodson said this time. If we hamstrung ourselves to just social housing in our strat plan, then that is the only thing that we would be looking at. If we have a housing strategy and this comes through, we can look at all of these areas. But I promise you, I have many discussions with many people in our accommodation, and they're not all looking to rent social housing. It is a balance. And actually, just to add, because Councillor Hodgson have been asking for me to start preparing the housing strategy, I think a lot of this needs to come through the planning scheme, which I'm not an expert in, and that's why we've been discussing with Sean, but a lot of this has to be facilitated through our planning process and our new local plan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this is a draft strategic policy that we're looking at, and I agree with Councillor Councillor Hodgson, and I agree with what Stacey's just said. Kind of whip up hysteria over social housing, it'll get us nowhere at all. And Stacey took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, not everybody who's looking for a home is looking for a social house. Look at Devonshire Homes up at the top of Mountio Way. They're giving us the full range of affordable houses. There's another site at Cornborough Road which will come on stream. They've agreed to 30% of affordable. Now, most of the affordable, 75% is for rent in our policy. But there's so many other issues to do with housing, as Councillor Hodgson said. There's downsizing for elderly people who are probably looking for bungalows. And thank goodness we are building a few more bungalows now. In fact, in this country, it was in the paper the other week, Torrance is the second largest authority with bungalows in the country, in England. So we are building some more, but that is another issue. When you read in our strategic draft plan here, and look at the bullet point there, the first bullet point, increase the availability and the quality of homes to meet local needs, and that covers many things besides social housing. And to develop, and the action is to develop and implement a housing strategy that provides creative solutions to meet the housing needs of the district. That's it all there. And what Stacey just said is the right way to go. But all this whipping up hysteria about social housing, if we're all heartless and don't care about it. Not everybody wants social housing. There are people who are in temporary housing who want to buy houses. And first time buyers is a key issue that we should address. Thanks, Chair. Thank you. There's a door.
Yeah, so on the note of first time buyers, etc., there's comments in here about supporting the youth within our community and actually encouraging them to gain decent experience, gainful employment of quality, rather than at the cheaper end of the market, right? And that then knocks on and ties in with people being able to afford reasonably priced housing, not necessarily social housing, but they are actually on the right track to support themselves. And then if we can implement in some form affordable homes within our villages and towns, which is what we are really lacking, so that people can get a foothold on the ladder, and as they grow and move on, and we've got more housing stock control. That's the way that people embrace life, and their mental attitude is more positive. Well, I wouldn't say all positive, but it promotes the
Councillor Brown, I haven't missed you, Councillor Lavelle. You can put your hand down if you want. I will get to you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I can see the point that this is part of a larger housing strategy, and I apologise if this has been mentioned and I just didn't pick it up earlier in the conversation. Do we have a kind of timetable for when the housing strategy might come first to a first committee? Sort of what, is there anything that you can tell us? Because it's obviously something that we all think is hugely important, and so we're just eager. I sense that's why this debate is happening now, because we're eager to get something down that said this is a priority. But if we know when the housing strategy is coming forward, then we can maybe get a sense that, yes, this is going to be written down and agreed on soon, rather than in the future we can't identify.
As I said earlier, that's the plan. We need the strategy first. We need the strategic plan first to develop those operational plans, and that's why it comes to you in this order. You're setting the strategic direction of the council, and from that, then we'll develop those detailed plans. So we haven't pinpointed an exact date or time, but we recognise it's high on the agenda.
Please,
Can you give any indication at all? Are we talking sort of a year's time, 3 years' time, when we might be able to agree on our housing strategy?
Try 20.
One of the key points you mentioned in there is establishing housing needs. So we need to understand the need to develop the strategy from. So there's a couple of pieces of work that need to collect the data, the evidence to build the strategy. And that's the next set of activities. That forms part of the work of the local plan as well. So they all need to work in conjunction with each other.
We'll start this. Councillor Bell, and then Councillor Bell.
I'd just like to say, thank you to Councillor Leather for pointing out that all these wonderful, massive housing estates are having a wonderful proportion of affordable housing. So the affordable housing issue is already being addressed. Great, we're really pleased to hear it. And there's lots of estates going up, 800 houses here, 400 houses there, and they've got affordable houses in there for these people who don't want to live in social housing and want to get a foot on the ladder. Great, go for it. I'm really pleased for you. Where are the numbers of social housing being built also at the same time now, as these estates are being built now, as these bungalows for older people who want to downsize are being built now? Where are the social housing that are being built now? I know that Sully House has come up and that's like 8 or 11 or whatever, and that's brilliant and it looks lovely, and I'm really pleased that that's happened. But where are the social housing people now? Because, the need that needs to be addressed, the bungalows, the social housing, whatever, are coming out of these 400, 600, 800 houses. Where are the ones now?
Yeah, so my view is that as councillors, it's our job to reflect the point of time we're in. I think it's established that there are significant deficiencies in housing provision, perhaps, and that's why we have a housing crisis. And Councillor Craigie is proposing one of the solutions to tackling that housing crisis. So, but I also understand that this is a strategic plan and the need to step away from operational solutions, perhaps. But when I read the strategic plan at the moment, I don't think it reflects the point of time we are in that paragraph could be put at any point in time in the history of Torridge, in the future or in the past. So to develop and implement a housing strategy that provides creative solutions to meet the housing needs of the district, absolutely. But it does seem to have missed the fact that at this point in time, and I think we're all in agreement, we have a housing crisis. So could we add at the end of that paragraph and tackle the current housing crisis? Then all of a sudden, this document looks as though we understand the problem we've got, that there is a housing crisis. It doesn't specifically point out one solution, but it does highlight that we are aware there's a housing crisis. And I also think that would help councillors at the next stage, when we look at operational approaches, be able to say, don't forget social housing, because we need it, because we're all in agreement that we've got a crisis. If we haven't got that crisis status, which is the now, then perhaps that weakens the hands of the ones who want to see a bit more radical change. And I think that would also influence the local plan considerably on the planning side, which I agree is the biggest tool we've got. It's something we can do something about.
I'd second that.
Chair, I guess the initial response is to say the council will tackle the housing crisis. The council won't tackle housing crisis on its own. We're never going to be able to deliver and sort out the entire housing crisis on our own. It's a crisis across the country. It's not a single point of failure. There's multiple things that are impacted. So I think if you put a comment in it, say we will tackle it and solve it, you're setting yourself up to fail.
Could I just come back on that? We have actually already said that we are going to meet the housing needs of the district, which I also will say we won't. I don't think we'll ever meet every housing need. But I do take your point, Steve, and you know, to contribute towards tackling the housing crisis perhaps would be a more measured wording.
I believe councillor Connor Hunkin put her hand up, and then councillor Craigie, and then councillor Pennington in that order, and after that, that's straw line.
It was just say, instead of and tackle, you could just say to help to tackle the housing crisis, and then it's still in there. It makes it clear, like you said, we're in a housing crisis. And I propose seconds that should be added to the strategic plan. I don't understand why there should be a problem with adding that.
Which,
Councillor Craigie, briefly, if you could.
Yeah, I was just going to request a recorded vote on the amendments.
Councillor Pennington.
Just going to say, Chair, that our problem has been that housing has been an economic driver, not meeting a social need. And until we go back and think of things from a social point of view rather than an economic point of view, we ain't going to go anywhere with this housing crisis because we have to make a profit. I was in Littleham the other day and I was talking to one of our new residents, and they sold a property for 1.1 million and bought a £500,000 property and got £600,000 tax free to put in their pension pot. Now, we can't get our locals to compete with that, and the issues we need to think about is something from central government that sets some rules that it does protect part of the community if we're not going down the council housing line. And I see with sadness there's a house in Littleham on the market at the present moment that was a council house in the 1940s now, just gone on the market. A lovely, beautiful house, and then it was right to buy. And I don't blame people wanting to aspire to right to buy, but we also need to create. And I would remind you also that when Appledore Shipbuilders came to talk to external ONS, they talked about now trying to get the workforce up to 300 people on a wage of about £30,000 a year. And that wasn't enough for those workers to buy a house within the area. And there is the endemic problem that we are in, because even good wages within the area are not now buying the houses, and there's nothing left to rent because it's been Airbnb. And we do need to think outside the box. And I think it's also lobbying central government because of the issues of a low wage economy and a high house price. And still we beat that block, we ain't going to go anywhere. And I'd like to see some aspiration to challenge more central government. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, just before backing up, so across Devon, we've got set up a housing task force, which is a combination of all the district councils, including Devon County Council, Plymouth and Torbay. I think Plymouth is still in that meeting. And that's with a view of lobbying government for different changes, different policy changes, because we recognise, as I said earlier, it's not one point of failure. There's Airbnb, the private rented sector, rents, local housing allowance. They're all separate factors that are contributing to a much greater problem. So that the role of that task force and the housing commission that's been set up, and Councillor James, the leaders on the task force, is to look at all those points, look at all the causes and effects, and with the intention of getting policy changes, making government see the problems that different things are causing into the housing system. So that is already in place and being dealt with through that mechanism.
Thank you. Right, where were we with that? Sorry, did you want to say?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, they give lots of ideas about why you should start boarding houses and all this sort of stuff. And the issue is, this is a draft plan of how we tackle housing, and we need a strategy. On the local plan, I was in trouble on Friday a little bit for pushing it. We do need, and it will be, a housing need section within that working group. It's going to be looking at their need. So we know, I've spent 20 years doing affordable housing in the Holsworthy area. On Friday, the government announced, the 3rd of November, the government announced some money that we can use to start working with
facilitators or enablers to actually start looking at how we provide housing in rural areas for our young people to make sure they stay. If you look at the Devon Home Choice list, some of you will remember, and Rose isn't here tonight, but Rose will remember, that Torridge actually fought against that to start with, because there's no priority for local youngsters on that list. So we managed to get A2E to be prioritised for locals on that. But if you're a young couple looking for a house, you're wasting your time putting your name on an E at the moment because you won't get any points. My perspective is we need a strategy that's tying all this together and moving it forward. I'm quite happy to see, I think we're all happy and want to see more social housing. That is not the issue. The issue is how we use the strategic plan to drive the housing of Torridge forward. And some of these bits will come into that and we will deal with it. But we don't want to end up with a plan, a strategic plan, and we're spending time working on one specific thing. That will come within the Affordable Housing Working Group. We've also got to think, it's fine to say we want more social housing. How are we going to do it? We haven't got officers. We've lost the one officer we used to have some years ago. There will be funding. Well, a question of, they have changed the rules a bit, in so much as we can now go up to 199 before we have to become a registered RP, and that is not easy. We've looked at it in Holsworthy. It's just an awful lot of work becoming an RP, and talking to the people I talk to do with housing, there's an issue coming now that the government through Homes England are not releasing the amount of money they were releasing. So all of this will have to be investigated. Yes, we can prioritise it within the work we're doing, but specifically to prioritise it, we will not end up with a strategy to deal with everything. And I'd just like to make that point, that we need to deal with housing and we need to get on with it. State has been quite successful in dealing with TAs. We've still got some. You know, we're ahead in so much as the pods that are all going to start being used now. Private home, you know, we've got two others we're looking at. So we're dealing with the TAs as much as we can. And there will always be a demand for social housing. There was Stompage years ago. You'd have to go back to Harold McMillan's time in 48 when he built affordable housing in villages. So I've spoken to Sean about the government money to look at enablers to try and build up a picture. And all of this will give us some evidence to go forward to the government. If we go forward saying we want money to do social housing, they're going to say, what's your plan? If we haven't got one, we are not going to get any money. So let's get a plan. We can look at it. How we're going to provide social housing. We will be doing it. You know, this idea that for some reason we're neglecting it is simply not true. But we do need to be able to build a case to provide all the evidence. You won't get any money unless you can back it up and do it. So please, let's just get on with the plan. And yes, within it, we can make sure we deal with social housing. But at the moment, it's going to deal with Councillor Wells said about what we're doing now. We're working with Westwood Housing to see what they can do. Now, by the time we set up the structure we need to deliver, you're going to be several years down the road. So good. We need to do it now. And the quickest way is to support a registered provider that's doing it. Not necessarily get weighed down by trying to do it ourselves and end up with nothing. So, yes, I'm happy that we are trying to do more with social housing, but in the short term, our best bet is either doing the TAs or working with a housing group to actually deliver them much quicker than we can. Thank you. Before we get on to the we've got
You've got two amendments. So the first amendment was Councillor Craigie, seconded by Councillor Brenton, which was to facilitate the construction of social houses, social homes. That's the first one. The second one is from councillor Piper, seconded by councillor Humpkin. It's easy for me to say, which is to contribute towards tackling the current housing crisis. Or councillor James has proposed that we adopt as is. So if you want to second, councillor James's.
So we'll take Councillor Grady's first, is that the first one?
Yeah, councillor
presented?
Brady, so that's to facilitate the construction of social homes.
All in favour, please show. Take request.
We didn't get agreement for the recorded vote.
But then ask for a seconder, did you?
Sorry?
Didn't ask for a seconder. Councillor Brady.
I'll second it.
We need 5 members to agree a recorded vote.
Another 4, there you go.
All right, Kirsty.
Councillor Andrews.
Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, sorry, but yeah, it's 4. Oh, thank you. Councillor Back,
Abstain.
councillor Annie Brenton,
4.
councillor David Brenton,
4.
councillor Chris Bright,
Again.
councillor Lauren Bright. Councillor Bushby,
Against.
councillor Cottle Hunkin.
Against, because I've seconded councillor Piper's.
Councillor Craigie,
Or.
councillor Dart,
Against.
councillor Elliott,
Against.
councillor Gibson,
Against.
councillor Gov. Abstain. Councillor Hackett,
Against.
councillor Haynes,
4.
councillor Harding,
Against.
councillor Hawkins,
4.
councillor Hodgson,
Against.
councillor Inch,
Against.
councillor James,
Against.
councillor Johns,
Against.
councillor Leather,
Against.
councillor Lavelle, councillor Newton,
Against.
councillor Pennington,
4.
councillor Piper,
Against.
councillor Shepherd,
4.
councillor Smith,
Against.
councillor Wheatley,
Against.
councillor Whitaker.
Against.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's 9 for, 19 against and 2 abstentions.
The motion's clearly not there, so move on to the second one. Read it out, Stacey.
Yeah, so this is to contribute towards tackling the current housing crisis.
That was proposed by.
Councillor Piper, seconded by councillor Cottle Hunkin.
Oh, that wasn't that recorded, but wasn't asked for, that was that. So, all in favour then, in support of that motion? Yeah, I have voted, it's all right. Any against? Abstentions? Okay, moving on to the actual draft strategic plan, being proposed by Councillor James. Who seconded that? Hasn't been, I'll second it for the chair. All in favour, please show.
Well, is that with the?
Sorry,
Right.
And against? Abstentions?
26 for and 4 abstentions, Chair.
Sums that up?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're long, don't Moving on to item 15, levelling up partnership, pages 110 to 119.
I'm sorry, I think this item will probably be quite long as well. I've got a bit to run through. So when the agenda was set, we purposely put this on after the strategic plan because it does nicely build on from that. So perhaps before I go start going through the report, some of the details, it's probably worth just reflecting, because I'm sure there's some confusion, certainly some confusion with us, what a levelling up partnership actually is and what it entails and what we need to do as an authority. So ultimately the report provides our current position statement and much of the progress we've made to date. So firstly, I think it's worth pointing out it's a government policy which is led by the Department of Levelling Up Homes and Communities, and it's a partnership, so it's led by DLAC, and we at Torridge didn't decide to form this partnership, we were selected to form a partnership. Secondly, it's worth outlining a few of the key phrases that DLAC Department's guidance sets out around what a levelling up partnership is. So it's the area is identified in the spring budget to be invited to form a partnership with DLAC. And in terms of partnership is about bringing together all levers of government. It's a bespoke place-based approach to policy making and recognising the unique challenges and opportunities an area faces in the short to medium term and seeks to devise a policy programme that supports that to improve that area. There's a couple of key points in there that reflects it. It's the area and a place-based partnership. And also reflecting the wide ranging challenges that the area faces. And that kind of points us in the direction that it's about a much wider partnership, not just about the district council, but about Torridge as a place. And that's essentially why we're talking about a place-based, a place board, which I'll come back to a little bit later. I guess then we're thinking more pertinently, what's Torridge's role in this if it's a partnership with the area rather than a partnership directly with Torridge Council. So as a council, we're the lead convener of the place. So our role is bringing together all the relevant partners, all the organisations across the district, bringing those to the table, ultimately the board. We aren't experts in everything that happens across the Torridge area. We've talked about housing, we've talked about social housing and those partners that deliver that. And there's the health sector, education sector. While we know a lot about our area, we're not experts in all of those and many other fields. It's about facilitating discussions and communications between the government department, their policy team, political discussions with the ministers, the MP, which the leader and I have been engaged with, and all of the partners across the district, including the board, and with yourselves as Torridge councillors. There's wider stakeholders to engage with, parish and town councils, our residents and our communities and businesses. They all form part of the package across the area. Ultimately though, Torridge, should there be any funding allocated to the partnership, will be the accountable body. So we'll be responsible for any funding that might come our way, especially if it's delivering any large capital related projects. We'll be responsible for the delivery of those projects and a work programme, again, especially if they're capital projects, and accept the risks. And ultimately, you as full council would need to approve anything that any particular projects the partnership will take forward obviously there's resource implications from your staff, etc. And we've been managing the flow of data, ideas, and things between the board, between government, and between our communities. So I kind of indicated we're like a conductor, if you like, pulling together the orchestra around the place, making sure things are going in the right direction, set the tempo, and overall owning the agenda. That's just kind of a little bit of background to what the partnership might look like. As has been pointed out, Councillor Brenton mentioned about pay earlier. We talked about skills, we talked about aspirations of our younger population being able to buy property. So the partnership, the reason for it has been selected is because of our low levels of NVQ level 3 progression, because of our gross weekly pay being low, because of our output levels being low, and because we don't have a healthy long life expectancy for our residents. So they are the metrics the government have used to identify the Torridge area. We talked a couple of times around the time frames. It had been a little bit confusing what they might be, but following a meeting, Councillor James, Sir Geoffrey Cox and I had with the Minister, that meeting was delayed somewhat because there was a change of ministerial responsibilities. But we had that meeting. It's been confirmed that we are working to a March 24 launch. So during March, a couple of weeks before that formal launch, we'll have an introductory meeting with the Minister and our MP. The Levelling Up policy team, the civil servants, will also meet with us in advance of that formal start of what's called a deep dive process. So I'll come back to that. Not my terminology, I assure you. And that process will run between April and June of next year. And we understand from our discussions with the team that it will be quite an intensive exercise and involving a lot of key stakeholders and partners as well as the council. So one of the things we have to do in preparation for that process, and some of the things we've been working on, is firstly defining the geography. Up until now and in other areas, the government policy has been centred around urban areas. This is the first partnership that started in a rural district. So ordinarily that partnership has been centred around an urban city area. And there's the policy defines that you should be working around that area. Now, quite clearly, in Torridge district, that would be Bideford, so anything would ordinarily be centred around Bideford. But quite clearly, we reflect that it's something we want for the entire district, not just one part of the district. And I'm sure you all support that. Needed to consider how a Levelling Up partnership might align to other work we're doing. Now, clearly we're doing work in Appledore through the Levelling Up Fund, and some of that work we aim to bring to the table through the partnership, because that's about upskilling, bringing higher paid employment to the area. Establishing and gathering strong evidence base. It's all built around data, data modelling, data evidence, data gathering is what will drive this forward and drive the government's decisions on whether to invest money in the area. Putting together our list of external stakeholders that the partnership team will engage with, so private, public, third sector, and any other stakeholders who are able to build up that picture of the place as wide as possible. And that's kind of where we were directed towards the development of the place forward. That's what's being used in other areas and what's worked in other areas, particularly around town deals and such. So looking at the priorities for Torridge for the partnership, Obviously, the strategic plan, as you just approved, is part of that process, part of that gathering. And identifying the challenges and opportunities, obviously our plan, as you just approved, identifies some of those priorities already. One of the key things is considering resourcing and capacity. Obviously, if there are projects to be delivered by the council, we'll need to consider how we resource them on top of the projects we are already delivering. And we've paid that message back to the minister. So what have we been doing? Some of the work that we have already done. As I said, we have to prepare for that March start. So we had a number of meetings with the department, with the officer team from DLAC and BASE. As the guidance has been, I'd say somewhat limited and touching on what we said earlier, a little bit vague. So we've been working with the team to try and understand how this emerging policy fits with us. We've been assigned a regional lead, and we first met back in October. We had a couple of visits from the team, and we've given them a tour of the district, showing areas from Appledore, Bideford, Torrington, and out to Holdridge. So giving them a general tour of the district. We've got a further meeting scheduled with the actual national policy team, so the official from DLAC, in January, in advance of the official start, to make sure we are on track to delivering what they need in terms of data gathering and evidence before that March starts. We've been working with colleagues at the County Council. Obviously, not all the data and evidence we hold ourselves, so we've been working collaboratively with the County Council. We're in the process of commissioning some work on developing what we term as the place story and the picture of choice. So building all of that data together, all the things about wages, jobs, skills, and everything, into some kind of evidence story that tells the government what college is like, what our concerns are, what our challenges are, and what the opportunities are for the partnership. You'll see from the reports, obviously we've been developing a draft place board, and that's on your agenda for tonight for consideration and hopefully approval. That's representative across sectors, but also picks up places across the district. So whilst we recognise a number of sectors need to be covered, it's also useful to have some of those based around the district as well. What the place board isn't, it's not a council place board, so it's not chaired by the council, by the leader or any other elected member. It acts independently of the council. It's, as I said, it's established through those professional experts in different fields to facilitate the discussions between the council, between the government department, and help guide that agenda. So it will be the levelling up policy team that will be developing a report to present with recommendations to the minister for what that team thinks will work in terms of interventions for the top area. So as I said, it's independent to the council, and the council won't be bound by any decisions of that board. It's not intended that they would be making decisions, as they're an advisory representative body. So the other pieces of work which feed in quite critically, that's being worked on, is the Northern Devon economic strategy. That's currently almost in a third draft version, and again that's built on evidence. We've got the Northern Devon Futures strategy, which feeds to Northern Devon Futures, and again looks at the wider Northern Devon area. Because quite clearly things that we do in our district have an impact and effect in our neighbouring districts as well, and vice versa. Obviously, we've just approved the strategic plan and recently approved that we'll move forward with a new joint local plan. But we've also been working collaboratively with our neighbours at North Devon, Devon County, and the local enterprise partnership that currently exists around some of those wider ambitions, opportunities around clean maritime propulsion and green energy generation, and it's clearly linked to what's happening and what we work at Appledore and some of the emerging floating offshore wind opportunities that may present themselves to this area. And there's clear links to some of the other energy pieces that are going on. As I mentioned earlier, capacity and resources clearly a concern, but as are things like housing needs, because if we're going to regenerate and rebuild the economy of the area, then that would need to come with housing and other infrastructure resources. So that's a kind of snapshot of where we are. The draft board is, as I said, set out in the report. I won't go through that in detail, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And I believe the leader wants to say a few words.
Thank you, Steve. Sorry, Chief, I'm talking a bit about cough. I'll just tell you to the Chief Exec, that really is a good description of what we're doing. We have struggled with it. I've struggled with it. Exactly how it's all going to work. I'll pay Steve on that. That really is exactly how it is. And I think what you can see on page 14 is all the stuff we're involved in. On your iPad, oh sorry, 114, how much we're involved in. And what we should be saying to ourselves, this is exciting. This is a chance to do what we keep wanting to do, which is to lift the area. I know there's some doubters, as often there is, but the opportunities are there. And what we've got to do, and it's all there, we've got the strategy, we can use that to base on where we're going. We've got the stuff from Appledore that can flow in and that. And I just think it's exciting times, but we need to deliver. And the beauty of it, of what we've decided recently, if you take the local plan, you know, we're going to start it in the autumn. We've only got 13, hopefully, the new local plan, hopefully if we get agreement. We've only got 30 months to deliver it. This one, we've got to start the end of March, and you never know with governments. The sooner we get on with it and get stuff done, the more likely we are to deliver it. So I just feel that this is really good. Our officers have got a good handle on it. We've had a very positive response when we did meet the minister and the civil servants. Let's just get on with it. You know, I'm not involved in discussions with committees. I just want to get out there. Give me a shovel, I'll give you a hole. You want a description, and I've got time to write it. You know, so let's get on with it. So thank you.
Thank you. Just a question, how much money are we actually getting for the Levelling Up Partnership? We know it's a share of 400 million, but when will we find out how much we're actually getting?
There's no specific allocation. As I said earlier, the Levelling Up policy team will make recommendations to the minister. So when they consider what interventions there are for the area, that will determine whether or not there's any funding. So whilst there's 400 million, 20 local authority areas, it's not a straight split. So I know there's been talk of 20 million because that's sort of the obvious split. And the minister mentioned that figure to us, but obviously it's driven by what the interventions may be.
Ken, if you want to just follow up, yeah, I would apologise. I should have moved the recommendations that are on page 116. Just move those.
I'll second that, Chair.
Councillor Haynes, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I've got just 3 questions. First of all, what's the councillor input involvement in all this? It all seems to be driven by officers and external forces. So what say are we going to continue to have? The second thing is, I note on the Forage Place Board biosphere chief executive is responsible for that. Why on earth isn't it Andy Bell with the biosphere? The other fact, one I'm querying is, one of the remits is a healthy life. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that involves climate change. Drought, pollution, flooding, that all has an effect on health. So why is there nobody on the board to do with the environment, climate change? Possibly Donna Sibley, our joint climate officer, would fulfill that role. So those are my three questions.
My answer to your second question, I think Andy Bell is the chief executive of that board,
He's going to be.
and he is already.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes,
we avoided putting individual names on there because obviously we didn't want to start discussing people, but obviously by association, when you know the organisation and in positions, that can quite easily be worked out.
Sorry, Chip, well, if I can come back on the environment, then may I propose that we include a person on the board to deal with the environment and possibly Donna Sibley. I need a second.
Yeah, I'll second it.
I'm sorry, we've got a set of criteria where we need to address those things. And then, as we said, we've got the biosphere on there, and no doubt it will come up in other sections, but we can't put people on that board just to deal with one particular thing.
So
the wider, the whole area, we're dealing with people that specialise in stuff. Yes, there will be people who specialise in that environment and what have you, but this is where we're going wrong as a council sometimes. We just keep on almost dealing with our own personal wish list.
Healthy life,
how we're going to deliver it.
Fourth item is healthy life.
Councillor Lavelle, leave it open.
So I just wondered, adding to the list, there's no mention of arts, cultural heritage in the. Sorry, arts, culture and heritage.
Sorry, that's covered by the strategic plan, which we've already had.
Oh, I was thinking about the board, the list of people on the board.
Again, if we don't put people on the board for specific areas, they have to be specialists in their area. And so, you know, the board will go on and on. We could have a board of 36 or 40 and still be discussing this in 10 years' time. What we've got is a board that we've been given a guidance to, of the types of areas we need to look at. That's what we've done. You know,
You've got the biosphere, which relates to healthy wildlife and relates to a healthy life as fourth in the criteria which has been presented to us. We couldn't exist properly without a healthy biosphere. We couldn't exist properly without a healthy environment. So I'm proposing we include a representative for the environment on the board.
surely contains Andy Bell, who's, as we all know, is, you know, probably the lead individual on the biosphere area on the board as chief exec. Surely that would suffice.
Not the impacts of climate change, nation. He has a specific role.
Please, Steve.
Chair, you've also got myself, Sean, the leader of the council, on that board, who will reflect everything the council wants to achieve through our strategic plan and through our other plans and strategies. And that's the purpose of having us on that board as well. So we're council's representatives.
Councillor Bright.
Sorry, I'm just checking that I've understood. It says that the police board structure, this is what it says in the report on page 115, is based on examples of others operating elsewhere, which we've been directed towards. So just because this table is what's come into us on this report, I agree with Councillor Haynes. If we wanted to make a change to it, this hasn't been given to us, laid down to us by anyone. This is something that the council is putting forward and agreeing to tonight. And so if we want to make a change to it, I don't think that that's been denied, that option's being denied to us by anybody. If that's what we want to do and we vote to do it as a council, why can't we do it?
Nobody said you can't do it. I didn't say you can't do it. It's the views and opinions that have been reflected through those members on the board from the council. So the leader of the community, as myself, for reference to and respect the council's views on that. I didn't say they can't be changed.
No, I agree with you, but at the end of the day, you don't want to make it so that nothing ever gets done, so it has to be specific to, the needs of our ends.
We've got a second, Chair.
Yeah. Councillor Newton.
Presumably, Steve, this, if you were to put environment on, I mean, the responsibilities actually mask the name of an individual that you've got on here, and you've selected or gone for individuals who are regionally leaders of their area, are subject matter experts, right? And that we've masked it at the moment because you've just put the area that they represent. But in fact, what you've really got underlying there is a list of names, I suspect. If there is somebody of that level who can actually contribute alongside everybody else in that category, then why not? But rather than just putting the function there, it needs a name first of somebody who's going to really bring value to that board.
I'd say to that is we're trying to deal with areas that we're doing. If we start picking individuals, then I'm sure in this room, we'll probably come up with a whole load of individuals. I think, again, we're becoming parochial. We're not looking at the bigger picture. The people, they've got North Devon Hospital. You could argue it's not in Norwich, but it has a major effect on this area. And there's probably 2 or 3 people in that group that could do it. But, how big do you want the board? We're actually up to the number that when we've looked at other areas, that sort of number. And it's the same all the way down. We can put names to it, and then we end up arguing about persons. What we're looking at is the bigger picture, what we need to get it all together, to drive it forward. We're going to be short of time, I don't see the benefit of putting, because if you put a name there, you've then got to justify why that person's there, and we'll end up with somebody justifying the other way.
Sorry, I think you misunderstand. I wasn't suggesting you put names in there now. I'm just saying that the method behind is that you're actually heading for key people who are major drivers in these various areas.
As I said, that's what we're trying to do, is to find the key people in those areas.
Functional areas.
Right.
Functional areas.
In functional areas.
You can't wrap environment together like that.
No. We've got, we're looking at for people within education, within health, with different businesses. We've also, because it's college-wide, when we've looked at the businesses, we've looked at the areas, so that we've sort of tried to do the 2 things together, is to pick areas and also come up with specialists within that area. Obviously, if you look at Appledore, you think about stuff around the Marine Centre and stuff like that. Torrington, we've got a really good skills man from Torrington, who actually has the skills board. That's the sort of thing you need to do. You've got to look at the bigger picture. Presumably, time is against us with this anyway. We've got to get it in place. I'm on. Sure. Sorry, Councillor Bright first, and then it was Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Chair. Leader, you say that we can't pick individuals, but this list is actually a list of individuals that have already been picked. I'm so struggling to square that round. I mean, I don't see why we can't suggest an area to find an expert and then say, well, we're putting that expert in. Is that really going to be that difficult for us to do? And we say we're not stopping people from doing it, but you're making it very difficult.
Chair, the other thing I mentioned earlier when I was doing the presentation is the team will want to engage with other stakeholders. So if the policy team identify that they need some specialist input or reference to people with climate responsibility or different environmental credentials, they will ask and we will direct them towards that. So it's not a finite list of everybody they will speak to.
Well, so it seems to be a perfectly logical way to do it. Well, we've agreed the strategy. We've agreed that we're gonna put business, programs behind the strategy. Therefore, you're gonna end up with an input from Torridge based on our strategy and the business plans that we do. So on environment, you'll have an input that goes into that strategy from the environment and also from everything else.
So why can't you select to put that on the list? Say you want someone from the environment, you can find who you want, but we want to put it as an option there, a seat.
How long a list do you want?
Does that work?
So just had him on.
Then you could probably put on the list.
We're not asking for loads, we're asking
Come on,
for one.
you want one, they want one, they want one.
Actually, think of another one.
Councillor Whittaker.
Very much. Do we want this money or not? Yeah, there is a structure. I think the template probably that's what Westminster and central government want us to look at. Now, we either want it, you've already answered some of our questions or some of the questions from the floor, when you say you're going to engage as you go on in a wider spectrum of people. I actually think that ought to result in, at least for this evening, I want to see this money coming here. I mean, God knows we've waited long enough to get any decent amount of money, haven't we, into this district? So let's not cloud the issue now here, please. Let's just crack on with it. Oh,
Councillor Pennington.
I'd just like to ask about Harper's fees under Holsworthy Agricultural. Agriculture is going through a tremendous change at the moment. The present payment schemes are changing to the environmental land management schemes in the next 5 or 6 years. There's a huge debate going on about the use of land. Anybody that attended plans committee last Thursday saw, I think, our planning committee have a huge battle about what use of land will be for the future and who should be actually striving forward for the future. And I would like to see somebody from the primary industry in agriculture representing the rural areas, because this reads to me as Bideford, Appledore, Northern and Torrington. But there's a hell of a lot more than there is just in that situation. And I'm a little bit concerned that we're not asking the primary industry who use most of the land across Torridge at the present moment. I think it's over 82%, if I remember rightly from the local plan, to put their input, because they are vitally important to be heard, because they provide a lot of the wages and the levelling up. We need that base and not just a supply chain, remember there.
Can I just come back there?
Yeah.
We put that slide there, but we know the individual's already done all this work for Cornwall in rural enterprises and stuff like that. So whilst this is where we fall into not naming people, when we know that we've got somebody who's expert in working in not just with the feed, although the feed will come a little bit from what we're doing in Appledore, there is a link, and what we have to do is to show the links. But the individual has worked on agribusiness and agri-tech for Cornwall. He's done project work.
Okay.
He's also done a lot of work with where we're going with the SFI and stuff like that. So in my opinion, and I put it saying forward, that he delivers a package that will deal with the whole of the rural area, rather than just somebody who's dealing with a specific area within agriculture. So let's also not forget Councillor James is on the board and he is a farmer as well. So who else? Sorry, did you wanted to come back on that?
I just want to make one more point. Yeah, just on the Appledore one. I mean, it does bother me a bit, Harland and Wolf, because if Harland and Wolf are going to make a choice between a levelling up thing for Belfast or Appledore, I mean, it's like having somebody from outside the area on the board. And I'm just a little bit concerned that I would sooner choose an indigenous industry rather than an industry that has just come in the last, I think, 5 years. Harland and Wolf have been an Appledore, and they may come and go again. We've seen Appledore come and go, but we need somebody with a feel for that. And it's just a comment about the Appledore situation there that I'm making.
Well, all I'd say to that is the people that we've got in mind, the people that are recognised nationally, and that will give us more kudos as we go forward with the board. You know, there are lots of successful businesses around, many of them self-made businesses. We can't include all of them, and what we're looking at this, because they're there partly for the place part of the story, and that's what I did say, we're looking at who we picked from the Bideford northern area, Appledore area, who we're looking from Taunton, and who we're looking from Holsworthy, to try and get some cohesion throughout the whole area. Some representation of the whole area. You know, these people are experts in their field, and the government's gonna listen to them more than us rolling up with Joe Fox and Fox. Councillor Leather, and can we please make that the last figure? It's 10-9, we've got a lot to do on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair.
Leather with the last figure.
Well, I'm on board with councillor Whittaker on this. There's up to £20 million available. Up to £20 million. As you heard earlier on, it was mentioned that normally this levelling up funding goes to the urban areas, the larger towns in the city. We were a rural area that's had the chance now to get up to £20 million. So don't queer the pitch. Just accept this. As it says on the top of page 115, TDC will not be bound by decisions of the place board. We won't be bound by, but lots of outside agencies and bodies will contribute, will give evidence and will contribute. We just vote for it and then get on to the work.
Okay, well, I've already said, Councillor James, Councillor Leather for the last week. So we propose it, you both propose it, the two.
Sorry, Chair,
Can I
have a seconder.
Sorry?
I have a seconder.
Second of that what?
For my proposal, which was about 15 minutes ago.
I didn't see a second.
Right, okay. So that was to include a person on the board to deal with environment.
Yeah.
So we'll take that one first because that's it. So if you don't agree with that amendment, we'll go back to the report.
Okay, all in support of Councillor Haynes's motion then, please show. Against?
Abstentions.
Sorry, oh, and abstentions, yes, sorry.
That's 12 for, 15 against and 3 abstentions, Chair.
Motion is clearly lost. The actual, sorry, other than that. Moved by Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Lever, all in favour, please show. Can't really understand why anyone would vote against it, but anyhow. Against? And abstentions. I love them. Right, do it again. All in favour, please show. Hands up nice and clear.
Your change to be against.
Definitely against.
And against? And abstentions.
26 for and 4 abstentions.
Thank you. That's clearly carried. Thank you. I know it's 5-9, but I'm gonna pay a visit. If anyone else needs to go, just take a minute to Still got quite a lot to get through on the agenda and it's just coming up to 9 o'clock. So item 16 on your agenda is councillor allowances, page 20 to 22. 120 to 122. You can present that, you, Steve?
Chair, I'll introduce it and I'll gladly hand it over to members for their consideration. I guess the pay award for all officers has been agreed recently. Hopefully or unfortunately, it was paid as a lump sum value this time as it was last year. So there's a different decision for you as councillor to consider how to apply any, if we should wish to apply any increase to councillor allowances. So it's a flat rate award of £1,925 for the majority of staff. Allowances were increased by 3.88%. The pay award of £1,925 equates to around 6.72%. That's an increase, and the pay award for the chief officers and myself was agreed at 3.5%. There's some information contained in the report around inflation rates and how other benefits and pensions have been increased. On the second page of the report, page 121, sets out your current scheme of allowances. I should point out that you can't approve any changes to that particular scheme other than increases to the individual allowances. You can't introduce new member allowances for any other responsibilities unless a recommendation is made to take that to an independent remuneration panel. The regulations require you to consider the views of an independent remuneration panel should you wish to change that scheme. So Chair, I guess it's over to members to consider the recommendations and what, if any, increase you wish to make.
Thank you, Steve. Sorry, Ken. All right, you carry on. I'll bring Councillor Brandon and when you've done your presentation. No, you go. Well, obviously, as leader, I need to make a recommendation. What my recommendation is for you to decide. I spent the whole weekend trying to work out figures and and we've come up today with this that we can't change. We can't change the different payments unless we do an independent review. And that's not on the card at the moment, but it could be if members want to do it. And that means that when you change the amount that goes to lead members or back to whether you look at vice chairs again, if you go back to the last independent review, which was 2019, the independent board recommended that we didn't pay lead members and we didn't pay vice chairs, because almost everybody would be getting an additional pay rate, because if you take everybody into account. So we're left really is, do we increase it at all, or do we not increase it? When you look at it, we are, as a council, we're behind most of the other district councils. Some of you would have read what's been recommended in North Devon, where they move towards a higher figure. They can do that over a couple of years because they've done it as part of their partial review. So we can't do that. So in very simple terms, it's, do we go with the 3.88, which is the using, which is what we've been recommended to do, is to follow the allowances that go in, the special allowances that go to no, not special allowances, the actual allowance that members are entitled to for their. Sorry. You mean the staff allowances? Yeah, the staff, sorry, the staff allowances for things other than their wages and travelling. So obviously, like us, travelling slightly differently on a mileage basis. So, in my view, and you can, we struggle to get consensus tonight, but in my view, that because there is some concern about lead members, and there could be a lot of work. If you look at what's going on, we're going to be here discussing stuff every meeting about where we're going with the different things. And I would just suggest that we go for the 3.8, and next year we go for the allowance that goes to staff that is their basic allowance. So that we sort of possibly add that tonight, so that we don't have this again next year. If we decide that's what we're going to do, that will come in automatically. And then a better way of doing it than standing there trying to argue that we're all worth more money than we're paying, which isn't true at all. But there is an awful lot of work that needs to be done, and I think as a council, we should recognise that. And also, if we do an independent review in the future, if we're not tackling the issues as we go, we will end up with a massive figure that we have to come in with to balance up. So we could then be saying, you know, we're standing here saying we need a lot of money to actually get us to the standard that other councils are on. So most of them are adopting the increase of the basic allowance of the staff just to try and keep the momentum going. And that's what I think we should be doing. I'm really, I've looked at it, I worked on it in the other night, and quite honestly, my easiest answer would be just come here and say, tell me what you want to do. But if you ask me straight out, because we feel some people are being a little bit undervalued, we can't do nothing about it. But we go to the small increase, £260, £206 a year, and we move on. You know, I just feel we need to get on with the council on everything tonight. It's been, come on, let's get on with it and get it working on it. Just get it done. So that's my recommendation, but I'm not going to be shedding tears anyway. Thank you, Ken. Councillor Brenton starts.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I move the recommendation 3, namely no increase. You've seen all the statistics tonight about the area that we live in, how deprived it is and economically poor. It sends us wrong message that elected members should be voting any sort of increase at all. It's just not right. And I think that, you know, you don't have to do everything for money. For some of us for years have been on, as you know, Chair, governing bodies and that putting in time voluntarily. The town councils never used to have allowances either. You know, if you can't, as a citizen, put some time into your community without getting a big reward for it, then you know, you shouldn't be doing it. So, as I say, I recommend the 3.
I second that.
Councillor Leather.
Yeah, well, I'm going to disagree with Councillor Brenton. I think we should make the 3.88%. We've not had a rise in the allowance for 4 years now. 2019 was the last one. And to attract new members, especially people who work, I think it's fair enough that you get a reasonable allowance for the work you do. Now, some councils do far more than others. But what I would say is, when we look into the future, we really have to address the issue of lead members. Because lead members, and I think increasingly so, we're going to do a lot of work in this council over the next 4 years. But there's a basic allowance. I worked it out. It's about £17.24 a month addition before tax. That's all it is. It's not that big a deal. But I think on the overall budget, it's about 8,000 and 9,000 on the overall budget. But I'm going to. Did you propose a 3.8? Yeah, I'm seconding the 3.8, number 1. And all this about, lots of us do work voluntarily in lots of different ways. But this is a different thing altogether, and we want to attract, I'd like to attract younger people to join the council who maybe work. And I remember years back when I was working, I used to take time off from work, and I was glad I'd got an allowance, which kind of compensated a bit for coming onto the council and doing. But you know, we all do work in, I think probably most of us are involved in things outside the council. But this is a fair it still leaves us behind some of the district councils.
You seconded Councillor James's
proposal for 3.8.
Can I just check, and that allowance be applied for consecutive years?
automatically without necessarily coming.
Not that allowance.
This-
That rate, that linking to that allowance in future years.
Until we do it. Yeah.
Point of order, please, Chair, point of order. At the outset of this debate, Councillor James said that he was going to leave it to us to make a decision, and then he come forward with a recommendation. He said he wasn't, he was going to leave it to us, and then that's why I popped up with, and my hand up, well, long coat, didn't I? You won't know that. Came up with a recommendation 3. So actually, he did have a proposal to put forward.
But he didn't propose.
But he didn't propose it at the time, at the outset, you did not propose that.
I withdraw my recommendation.
Right, okay, but let's address the business of Councillor Leather about lead members, etc. I agree, we should have a review of the special responsibilities. They do need review, they're not right, there's no two questions about it, but we need a group leaders meeting for that. I know you're very happy about them, but we do need a group leaders meeting about that, so we can sort out how that should be done fairly and get agreement before it ever comes to council, okay? We should not be having those sort of debates in the public domain. It doesn't look good, not right.
Councillor Piper?
Thank you, Chair. What a horrible subject. I don't think any of us are comfortable in talking about it, but it's reality. And I completely agree with Councillor Leather. I wouldn't like to see a situation where good local people who are embedded in their communities can't become a councillor. And that would absolutely be the reality if we all said we've got to give up significant time. I know a lot of people on this council give up significant time. I appreciate the fact that we have an allowance. I have a mortgage, I have 2 young children, I have a wife who beady-eyed looks at me a lot of the time when I spend a lot of time in my work time. Because to be a good councillor, I've realised you've got to separate, put aside good quality time in the daytime, and that means your work takes backseat. And at this time, it amazes me how people are making ends meet. And I think if we freeze, as per Councillor Brenton's recommendation, that is a significant cut. It is not keeping things as it is a significant cut. I think 3.88 is respectful to other people, staff, chief executives, people that have got similar raises, and it keeps things moving forward with momentum. So I completely agree with Councillor Leather.
Councillor Leather, in view of the fact that.
Yeah, I'll make it the proposal then. In the Councillor James withdrawing the proposal, I'll make the proposal if somebody's seconded it.
I recommend be clear, you're
3.88. Tying it in future years, like, for the allowances, whatever they are. And I'll second that.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor.
Very good points raised here. I think all because we haven't had an increase doesn't mean we have to have an increase. As a younger person who works, I work for my money. I think being a councillor is a privilege, and I feel it's not the money side that makes me want to become a councillor. Also, to have money as an incentive to entice younger people shouldn't be the way we want to bring people in. We should want to bring people in who want to do the job, and that's it.
With respect, I don't think the money that treasurers collect each year is an incentive for anyone to be a councillor, but I take it. So. Yeah. So we need to take the amendment first, that was. Sorry, Councillor Brenton's proposal. Sorry, you don't speak.
Yes, I think we're looking at this at we're looking at the wrong end of the municipal drain pipe, and I cannot believe that 2 Labour members are levelling down our allowances. Because let's look at it. nationally, I believe the true figure is around £6,000 a year. Why should it be less in Torwich? I'm going to make this argument. We have a demographic age deficit on this council, especially at members' workshops, when we get members who can't attend because they're working. We need to make sure that they are correctly remunerated with their allowances to allow them to take the time off. You know, if I look around this room, we've got 36 shades of grey. Okay, I'm going to get picked from very close order, but we need that young element. We're not talking about the people here today. We're looking for the next generation. I went up to Parliament a few years ago and I met the member for Lewisham East, a Labour member, who said that local councils are the cradle of democracy. It's not something to bolster up our pensions when we're older. We need that younger element in. We need to encourage them, and we might just have a homegrown MP that goes on in the future to represent us from our community. Let's look at it from the long term, not the short term for what we need. You know, a lot of us, we've had our time. We've got to get the younger people involved, and we'll only do that if we give them the correct allowances. So I'm strongly on board for the 3.88. Thank you.
Okay, well, councillor Brenton's motion was seconded by, I believe, councillor Shepherd. So take that, first of all in support of that motion that we don't have any increase at all, please show.
Oh. Sorry?
No, you can't take.
One being.
Against.
Against? And abstentions? Okay, we're taking on to councillor Leathers. Sorry, Tom,
Yeah, 6 for, 18 against and 3 abstentions, Chair. Councillor Haynes wasn't in the room and 2 left at the break.
Okay, so councillor Leathers is proposing that we move the allowance to 3.88%, seconded by, I believe, councillor Harding. All in favour, please show. Okay, and against? Abstentions?
23 for, 5 against and 1 abstention, Chair.
Very carried. Thank you. Item 17, I'm suspended under procedural rule. Hang on. Camera on. Okay, so the first one, we've got 3 questions that have been received, and the first one was from councillor Brenton, being. Mrs. Brenton, the boss.
Please don't make it a disparaging remark, Chair. Right, councillors, well, this answer doesn't answer my question at all. My question wasn't disputing the fact that we've got iPads or the history of them and when they were introduced and the digital by default strategy and the continued reduction in the use of paper associated with services like postage. It was about our actual use of them and how user-friendly they are to councillors. Because we have a bit of a different circumstance from the staff using the system with these iPads. And, you know, probably somebody who isn't very tech savvy, but, you know, I found it very difficult to overcome some of the problems I've encountered on there. I mean, I'm fed up with something saying to me, Safari can't open this page. Fed up with it. John knows that I've had lots of problems with some of the emails. The request for commitments years ahead, I understand why people are making those requests, but in fact, it clogs up the system incredibly. It confuses you, and it confuses me anyway. And 39 emails read arrangements and subsequent changes to committee dates doesn't help you to sort through to find out the things that really are your priorities. Also, loads of councillors telling me that they are or are not going to give a contribution to St Margaret's School's Christmas lunch. You know, I don't really need to know that. In fact, you know, you can't see the woods for the trees because of these systems. There's an overload of non-specific data on our email, but it's not just that. Trying to keep hold of the agenda on here is incredibly difficult. I don't know if there is something about time delay and all that, and when it turns off, but I do think there should be special arrangements for the agenda on full council, because we've had long meetings and mine keeps switching off and then it whizzes back to the beginning, and you know, it takes a bit of a while to get back on track again. So my point was that there's an erratic presentation of council agenda reports and contents, and that there's no archive on here. If I wanted to look at a council meeting in 2021 and 22, which I might want to do for some reason, research or whatever, where is it? I don't know where there's an archive on here. It isn't on NodGov as far as I can see. So my question was about when is it reviewed in terms of councillor input? It was about asking for what somebody else has already talked about tonight, about councillor input into how the system works. Whoever that may be, there's obviously much more competent people in this room than me who could do something about that and help. But I do feel that as there's 36 people here who use this system, that we should have some input on the grounds of equality about the way it's implemented, the way we're using it. It could be once every 4 years or whatever, I don't know. I'm not being specific about that, but I do feel, and I know I'm not the only one who's encountered difficulties, that, you know, the system could be, I'm sure, improved by a bit of the councillors, the lay members, the lay elected members into the system to just make it more user-friendly to councillors. That's what my question was about. It wasn't criticising the fact that we've got them, or when they went into place, or whatever. The answer to my question, it completely misrepresents what I was asking, or I don't understand it. That might be my fault, it probably is. But that's what I was asking. I was asking if we can have some kind of input as councillors into the way things are produced and go on. And I don't see why we couldn't have a small group, hopefully those who are most computer savvy, as I say, to help the staff or whoever does this to make it a better service for everybody involved. And I think that's a win-win situation, really. And I don't see why it should be contemptible.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Grady. No discussion on it.
It was just some thanks, actually, because it's related to the iPads, and I won't name who it was, but a member of my group was really struggling with using the iPads at the beginning and found it quite daunting. But the IT team are really brilliant, and that member went in quite regularly to speak to IT to find out how to use them, and is now quite proficient. And I'm quite proud of that member, who I won't name. So thank you to IT.
Okay, Councillor Brady's
Yeah. Just quick to confirm that obviously the response means that no consultants have so far been commissioned to work on the Levelling Up Partnership.
Thank you. And the last one is Councillor David Brenton.
Thank you, Chair. No representations have been made. Why not?
Got to make a resolution.
No, you don't. We've got a leader, we've got various councillors here who've got an interest in these things, so we should have made some representation. You'll notice we did manage to get down on our iPad here. You've got tonight, you should have got an email, pharmacy business, it comes under at 23 minutes past 4. Read it. Because it talks about how pharmacies are asked by the government to, you know, prop up the health service like mad, and at the same time they're closing like mad. They talk about Norfolk actually losing 6, including their boots as well. So it's got Andrea Ledson is the minister responsible. So we should, and I ask again, should be writing to her and saying this is a serious problem, because of the underlying problem, like dentists, is because the core money from central government isn't enough for the pharmacies to operate, to do all the things they are expected to do now, like injections, etc., advising you when you should go and see an undertaker because you're that bad. Okay, so that's a supplementary second ask.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, item 18, there are no petitions, so we come on to item number 19. Three notices of motion. Yeah. We're now coming up to the 3 hours, and clearly we're not going to finish this in 5 minutes, so I'll propose from the chair that we extend our meeting until overtime. Seconded by Councillor James. All in favour, please show.
Is there an extra allowance to go with this?
Please back, Councillor Brenton.
You know.
I do, believe you me, I do.
Any against, was there? No. Right, so we've got 3 notices of motion. Councillor Brenton, Councillor Haynes, and Councillor Craigie. So you've each got 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes. You don't have to take the 3 minutes, I understand what I like, but please be brief, to the point. And we'll call for a proposal, call for second then. So the first one is Councillor Brenton, Councillor Annie Brenton.
Thank you, Chair. Right, well, I hope this won't be at all contentious. Thanks to our head of legal services, we had a very good training session from Beth Evans about councillor standards. I think it's probably routine when you get a new council. And that was a very interesting and thoughtful presentation. But when I spoke to her afterwards at the end of it, she was quite surprised that we don't actually have the LGA model council code of conduct. You know, this is a situation where everybody would be protected if we did have the LGA, local government associations, model councillor code of conduct. It protects councillors, it protects the public, and it protects our staff as well, the people that work for the public, because it's a very comprehensive and understanding code of conduct. At the moment, when I asked for the code of conduct, we got the financial regulations and the prejudicial interests, but all the rest of it that's on the model code of conduct wasn't there, and that's because I'm informed that we haven't adopted that particular code of conduct. We haven't adopted a full code of conduct. The code of conduct of the LGA covers general behaviour, bullying and harassment, discrimination, confidentiality, obtaining consent, and facilitating the public's right to legitimate information. And it obviously incorporates the Nolan principles of selflessness integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership. And as Torridge has suffered a few hiccups in the recent past about coping with some of these issues, I do think it would be very fortunate for us if we adopted this code of conduct. It's a real safeguard, and it means that most of the situations that we can envisage and the contingencies that might occur would be covered by a clear code of conduct, which most councils in this country at local authority level do have adopted. It would make us all much safer, much more reliable, and much more able to cope with our job if any problems arose. And we are all human, we all make mistakes. And so, you know, I do feel that we should adopt the LGA full councillors code of conduct. I'd just like to finish off by, if I can risk near Christmas time, quoting the prophet Isaiah, who said, if you don't have, I'm summarising here, but if you don't have a set of standards and a basis on which to make your decisions and you claim integrity, you're just putting on a filthy coat.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. I believe that is going to the next standards committee for consideration.
Good. Thank you.
So, yeah. So. Yeah. Sorry, Councillor. Councillor Baxter.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. It's on the agenda for the next meeting. I won't ramble on about it, but the code of conduct that Torridge adapted some time ago has worked really well. It's very similar to the LGA code of conduct, but it is on the agenda. We'll discuss it there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, do I need a second then?
You do indeed.
Oh, well, second it then.
No.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
For the fact that it's going to the standards committee for consideration, Councillor Brandon, the fact that it will be debated there, presumably, if that committee takes on board what you're saying, they will report back at the next meeting and once those minutes are adopted.
So I don't need a second.
You don't know, no. Okay, the next motion is Councillor Haynes. Got your 3 minutes.
In 2019, Norwich councillors decided to ban fireworks at Brunswick Wharf, and Bideford Town Council resolved not to fund fireworks and to restrict decibel levels. Both decisions came after a petition of around 8,000 signatures calling for a ban due to the dreadful effect of exploding fireworks on starlings roosting under Bideford Long Bridge and other birds in the vicinity. Recently, there have been calls on social media to let off fireworks at Brunswick Wharf or at other possible sites at Easter Water near to Long Bridge on New Year's Eve, although I gather permission has now been refused at Brunswick Wharf, for which I give thanks. However, calls are still continuing on social media to have fireworks by the river at Easter Water. As our council no longer owns Brunswick Wharf, so cannot apply the 2019 decision, I'm therefore proposing to re-register our strong opposition to proposals to use of fireworks in the vicinity of the bridge where they lead to the death and injury of starlings and other birds. May I remind you that this council is committed to the Biosphere Nature Recovery Pledge and has also declared a climate emergency, part of which recognises the disastrous decline of wildlife in the UK. And Mr. Durrant, if you remember his address at the beginning of this meeting, movingly related to you his personal experience of wildlife decline, which includes starlings, which are now on the national endangered list. In further support of my resolution, I refer to a recent RSPCA communication about fireworks on New Year's Eve, citing the results of the national survey finding that over half of respondents expressed concern about the effects of fireworks on wildlife and on pet animals. When the fireworks used to be let off in Bideford at New Year, the starlings roosting under the bridge and other birds would scatter in fear leading to many being injured or dying due to hitting crash barriers, the road and buildings, or drowning in the river. I expect you've witnessed or seen on television the amazing starling murmurations, and I hope admired the varied chatter and mimicry of these wonderful birds. Sadly, the number of starlings gathering at dusk by the bridge has depleted considerably over the years, following the national trend. May I therefore urge you as councillors to fulfil our commitment to wildlife by voting for my resolution.
Thank you.
I seek a second.
I'll second.
Okay, that's been proposed and seconded. All those in support of Councillor Haynes' motion, please show. Against? Abstentions? No?
Yeah, 16 for, 3 against, and 9 abstentions.
Motion is clearly carried.
I'm very grateful. Thank you.
I would just like to add, Councillor Haynes, from town council's point of view, when this matter first came up and Mr. Durant gave his the previous year and the following year, I specifically asked our fencing team to give me the numbers of any starlings that were injured or particularly dead that they came across in their early morning cleanup after New Year's Eve. There wasn't. But we'll leave it there.
That goes against the witnesses who told me, Chair.
We'll leave it there. Your motion is clearly carried. Thank you very much. So the third notice of motion was from Councillor Craigie.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Given the shortness of the time available, I thought I'm gonna forego my speech and just read the words of the Link Centre users who was also one of my residents who was unable to participate today. My mental and emotional health has been declining since the beginning of the year. I've tried, along with my doctor, to try and stabilise without the need of extra medication. Unfortunately, I've had to put up the extra medication. The 3 consultations that Devon County Council have been running have taken their toll on the service users' mental health. And this last consultation has really been challenging for everyone. However, it has been particularly detrimental effect on me. I've been unable to even read through the consultation, let alone respond to it, which has significantly increased my anxiety and stress. This, coupled with an extremely traumatic event on Saturday, led to an overwhelmingly emotional and triggering response. On Monday, my mental state resulted in me being taken by ambulance to A&E. I've just become yet another statistic in the Torridge area to attend hospital. How many more people is it going to take before someone listens and helps us? The Link Centres are my safety net. The staff are excellent at de-escalation and preventing a service user going into crisis. I have had several one-to-ones over the last 6 to 8 months, and I would have been lost without them. I use the Link Centre 3 times a week. However, I've been deliberately not going for a few weeks to see if I'm able to do without it. It seems not. Thank you.
1 second, Councillor.
I do. Thank you. I'd just like to second Councillor Craigie's notice of motion. I was at the meeting with John McInnes and so was he. It's clear that Devon County Council hasn't got any idea what they're going to replace the Link Centres with. They couldn't bring up any answer to the questions about what the budget was and where they're going to place these services. And it's ironic that the government's bringing in regulations to ensure that banks can't withdraw from communities. And I understand how important that is, and I'm totally in favour of that, until they can come up with other kinds of financial support for those. And yet there's no such safeguard for this service, which is so important. And I can't believe there's any cheaper support and service for people who need that support from the link centres than the one we've got at the moment. I cannot believe, and I'm sure Councillor Whitaker, who's been working in the voluntary sector for a long time, and I know from my experience, that actually it often isn't cheaper to do it through the voluntary sector. No way, because they can't be providing all the adequacies that are needed. And so you have to get consultants in and professionals in to support them. So I do really think that this is a very, very important issue. And I second Councillor Craig's motion.
Thank you for that. I was going to second that myself. I'm glad you did, Mr. President. So all in favour of Councillor Craig's motion, all the support, please show. I think that sends a very important message that it was a unanimous decision. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the meeting.